Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the 79th Venice International Film Festival. Welcome this morning to the press conference of a film that is playing out of competition today, and we are especially proud to host the premiere of Freedom on Fire, Ukraine's Fight for Freedom, the new film by Evgeny Afinevsky. Today, here at the press conference, we are glad to welcome the two protagonists of the film, Natalia Nagorna, and Anna Zaitseva. And of course, to my left, the director, Evgeny Afinevsky. Before we start with question, Evgeny wanted to share a few words. Evgeny, please.
First of all, I would love to thank Festival, Selection Committee, and especially Director of the Festival, Alberto Barbera, for, in 2015, believing in young kid who was doing his first steps in Hollywood and gave me a platform in 2015 here in Venice for Winter on Fire. And then, a few years later, Alberto Barbera helped me with my next project, Open Doors of Vatican, and after that, he was supporting and providing guidance when I was doing another project on Pope Francis. And today, same Alberto Barbera, the same angel of arts of this beautiful place of Lido, opened doors again for young artists who try to document the history and bring a spotlight to the ongoing war for 8 years in the heart of European Union. So on behalf of my heart, from the bottom of my heart, on behalf of my team, I would love to thank Alberto Barbera and the entire selection committee for giving me this opportunity to bring voices of people from the ground, to bring these voices through the medium of cinema. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Evgeny, for these kind words. I would like to start the conversation around the film from something that you just mentioned. You described this film as a sort of sequel or a continuation of what you had done with Winter on Fire. So I would like to ask you what that means to you and how this film actually continues the story that you had already documented with your previous film. Thank you.
Winter on Fire was finished in 2014-15 and was world premiering here. But in 2014, we still continued filming, and for me, as much as Maidan happily ended, like my amazing protagonist Natalia Nagorna said, we were thinking that it's ended, but it was just the beginning. And it's true, it was the beginning of the war. So this movie I basically taking from the point I left on Maidan. So it's substantially the continuity of what's happened. And this movie talks about these 8 years of the fight for freedom, fight for human rights, fight for their ability to be a free, independent nation. I'm talking about amazing Ukrainian people whom I met on Maidan and whose stories the audience will see in this sequence to Winter on Fire, which is true fight for freedom through these 8 years.
Thank you so much, Evgeny. You mentioned your protagonists. I would like to ask you how you decided to work with certain people, and in particular with Natalia and Hannah, how you work with them in terms of connecting with them in the first place and then deciding on how to depict their position within the ongoing history of the war. Thank you so much.
First of all, I think, pointing to my amazing, beautiful protagonists, I think one of the reasons we see more women today with me is that I'm trying to break the image of the war when we're only thinking about masculinity, soldiers, and the male. And in my life, in my career in Hollywood, I was lucky having support of the most amazing female producers, executives, PR people, and people on the ground, characters, who've been with me through most of my movies, along my career that I was doing movies. So for me, at that moment, it was also important to emphasize that the war not have difference between males and females, between men and women. We all equal, and that women can equally with the men bear the most important things in a war. And that's why you see in beautiful protagonists who are heroes for Ukrainian nation and who are today representing millions and millions of voices of Ukraine, here on a cinematic screen. Why and how I choosing the characters? I think for me, to tell the stories, I try to take a step from the great media of the world and try to show the war through the eyes and stories of the human civilians, humanity and civilians. Because who is suffering mostly from the war? Normal people, mothers, fathers, kids, elderly, ordinary people who are here, present, and who are living day by day their lives. Not just soldiers on the front lines where we expecting to see the war. So I think that's why you can see different people sitting next to me who represents this war for me. The ordinary voices of the human beings from the streets of Ukraine.
Thank you so much, Evgeny. I would like to turn the question to Natalia and Hanna and ask them how it was to work with Evgeny, in particular in terms of sharing your stories on the backdrop of the war. Thank you.
Okay, hello everybody. So it's really a great pleasure for me to be here, and it's a real miracle that I'm alive and I'm here today. And this miracle is possible due to our Ukrainian soldiers. It was a great pleasure for me to work with Evgeny, and also I have to say thank you, Evgeny, because due to Evgeny, right now you can feel how it was in the Azovstal. You can feel a bit how it is to be in the center of the war, how it is to be on the front line. Thank you.
Добрий день усім, дякую, що ви сьогодні прийшли до нас. Я буду говорити з вами українською. Мені дуже важливо, щоб голос України чули у світі. Це, власне, мова, якою я говорю у фільмі, і мова, за яку на окупованих Росією українських територіях можна втратити життя. І це мова, за яку кожен українець ладен віддати своє життя. Можливо, не кожен, але в більшості це дуже важливі і принципові для нас речі. Женя Євгеній, наш режисер, зробив найголовніше. Він дозволив нам просто сісти і говорити про війну. Про війну говорити дуже складно, особливо коли ти намагаєшся розказати не тільки про те, як по тобі б'ють ракети чи летять снаряди. Звісно, ми говорили про те, як руйнують наші школи, як обстрілюють наші дитячі садочки, як вбивають наших дітей, як вбивають найдорожчих людей і намагаються вбити все те, що нам насправді дороге. Тому Женя просто дозволив нам говорити. Він дозволив нам розказати про війну. Незважаючи на те, що я журналіст і постійно розповідаю про війну, і навіть після фестивалю знов туди поїду, але ми розказуємо про війну людям, які в ній живуть, ми розказуємо українцям. Але я розумію, що світ має побачити нашу війну іншими очима. Я рада, що це очі Жені в даному випадку. І це фільм, який, якщо чесно, я ще не бачила. Але я зовсім за нього не переживаю, тому що це фільм, який базується на реальних подіях. Це документальний фільм, і це для нас було принципово важливо, тому що він зроблений в колаборації з документалістами. І ми вдячні кожному, хто не лінується говорити про Україну. В даному випадку Женя не тільки говорить, він ще й показує. Він показує нас нормальними людьми. Всім здається, що люди, які потрапили в війну, які потрапили в такі складні умови, вони мають бути якимись замученими, негарними. Але найголовніше, що ми намагаємося зберігти, і що принципово важливо зберігти нам у цій боротьбі, це наша гідність. Це насправді боротьба за свободу, яка без гідності неможлива. І мені здається, що навіть з назви, яку Женя вибрав для цього кіно, про нашу боротьбу, це вже стає зрозуміло, і я теж дуже чекаю цей фільм.
Thank you so much, Hannah. Thank you so much, Natalia, for sharing your life and your views in this film. The conference, of course, is open to the questions from the floor. I think there was already one, so please, the mic to the center here, please.
It's working? Yeah. Anna Maria Pasetti, Il Fatto Quotidiano. Hello, everybody. Thank you for this amazing witness. To all three of us, first question, how are you? First, especially Hannah, given what you've been experiencing so far, and Natalia. Sorry, I didn't understand, but I'll catch up online after, because I didn't have my phone. And a question to the director. I think this is kind of a mixture of an instant movie, but also a reflection already of, as you said, it's been 8 years now going on, but facts are still ongoing. So there's really a kind of combination between something that's going on and something that you're already able to reflect upon. How do you deal with this? Because it's quite difficult to take the right distance towards something that is still bursting and horribly going on. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I think when Maidan finished in 2014, the world reacted to the annexation of Crimea. The European Union witnessed MH17. It's happened more events that the world completely not saw in the media, like Donetsk airport, Debaltseve, Ilovaiskiy Kotel, Avdiivka, and the list is big. So the war in Ukraine started and same time disappeared. For me, it was similar to the war that I witnessed in Syria, my previous 12 cries from Syria. So for me, I realized that if you're not telling the story of the people and not bringing these important stories to the world, not to bring in spotlight to the situation that goes on and on and on, then the fire can be burned more and explode, which we saw in 2022. We witnessed that after 8 years, it's not just explode, it's affected everybody in the world. Today, we're living in a World War III in a parts or in the pieces, but it is what it is. And I feel I am fluent in quite a couple of languages, and I can follow the trends of the media, for example, in a propaganda machine of former Soviet Union. So I can see that the ambition there is not just Ukraine. It's the imperialistic ambition. And it's a pity that today we still not realize that it's not just a threat to the security of European Union, it's a threat to the world. I think every century eventually brings a dictator. In 1812, we had one that tried to take over Europe. 100 years later, 1939, 1945, we have another one who had ambition to take over Europe and the world. Imperialistic ambition. I guess this century gives us another one who trying to, as per his own words, collect the lands and build the empire. I think the only way to preserve this world for our kids, for your kids, for the kids of the people who are there, to keep this world beautiful, to continue art that we're presenting every year here, is to unite. Maidan for me was the reflection of unity, something that I greatly appreciate. I witnessed unity of young and old, rich and poor, religion, different religious people, heads of different confessions together with the people. Something that I not witnessed when I was living in Israel. Never. But I saw this interface dialogue there with the people. So for the first time, I saw how unity brought people together. So going back to your question, I think that if today we will not show to the world what exactly happening inside of Ukraine, not will educate them how it started and how already this beautiful piece of land with the richest culture and the longest historical background burning in the flames, and every day people's lives are taken. Civilian and innocent people's lives are taken. Then we creating a crime because we're not paying attention to that. But tomorrow it can be another country in the European Union. And that's why I felt urgency despite the ongoing war, despite the situation that's still on the ground, to bring this reminder and this wave of experience, shock, and the stories from the ground to bring my audience to these grounds of Ukraine and show them how Ukrainians welcoming every human being except the invaders, and what in reality happened since 2014 there. So that was the urgency and my reflection. Thank you.
I want to quickly ask Evgeny something that is connected to what he just mentioned, because you were talking earlier about the ways, and Natalia was also mentioning that when she talked about the dignity of the people that you're depicting in the film instead of, showing derelict people as usually in the war. I think here you're also trying to defy certain conventions of what a war documentary should be. So can you maybe elaborate on that? And that is also a little bit connected on the choice of how you are telling us something about something that is still ongoing. Thank you.
There is 2 points. Point number 1, the urgency. And this movie was done in less than 6 months, edited in less than 3 months. Last shot with this beautiful lady, Natalia Nagornaya, was done on the 9th of August, less than 1 month. Beautiful voice of Helen Mirren was recorded on August 26. And literally, the movie was finished at night between August 30 to 31st. So you're really watching something directly from the grounds of this war. And for me, it was really important to deliver the most beautiful human, the word human, eye to the grounds of Ukraine, to the grounds of the war. And also, another aspect of this movie, I try to show the war, but I also try to show humanity. I try to show the nation that can smile, have their jokes about the war, and that they are having a high spirit and they will win. And that's what's important, because this is the same exactly spirit that I saw in Maidan, and Maidan won. It's proven, it's given, we saw it. It was united, and I saw exactly the same thing, entire country united to win. With the high spirit, with the smile, that's how they're fighting.
Thank you. Are there other questions from the audience? Yes, please, the lady in pink first, and then the gentleman in blue. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Alexandria Sage from AFP. First of all, I think it's shocking that this room is not filled. So I'm ashamed by that. All the journalists should be here today to listen to you. I'm interested in talking to Natalia and knowing how you are continuing to work as a journalist on the ground, if you are, what you're doing, how you're able to keep working every day. Thank you.
Насправді ми потрапили в ситуацію, коли простіше... Журналісти України потрапили в ситуацію, коли нам простіше показувати війну, аніж не показувати. Навіть зараз я їду сюди, в дуже гарне місто, в дуже красиві місця, Венеція страшенно гарна. І тут таке враження, знаєте, що ти потрапляєш на зовсім іншу планету. Планету, де люди щасливі, де люди можуть жити нормально, і які впевнені в тому, що війна їх ніколи не буде стосуватися. В нас теж були гарні міста, доки їх не розбили російські ракети та снаряди. В нас теж були веселі люди і багато туристів, поки до нас не прийшла Росія з окупацією. І насправді при всій цій красі тут, я розумію необхідність бути тут, але найбільше, що хочеться робити зараз, це знімати і показувати війну в Україні. Це чи складно показати? Дуже складно показати і при цьому залишитися живим. Тому що я розумію, що я несу відповідальність і за свою знімальну групу також. І за людей, які супроводжують нас на фронт і забезпечують наше життя і виживання там. Але, ви розумієте, ми знімаємо війну про людей. Тобто ви можете побачити, от в Жені у кіно у «Свободі у вогні» ви побачите, як люди сміються. Ми знімаємо історії в першу чергу про людей. Наприклад, коли я побачила вперше Аню після Азовсталі, найперше, що мені захотілося зробити, це її обійняти. Мені захотілося, щоб якомога більше людей побачило, як весело посміхається її свят, її син. Мені хотілося, щоб побачили, що навіть маленька дитина після Азовсталі, після бункерів, після страшенних бомбардувань, які переживала дуже маленька частина людей у світі, так? Але ми дуже мотивовані. Ми мотивовані, тому що якщо ми не будемо щодня знімати і показувати війну, не буде нашої країни. Нас всіх вб'ють. В наші перспективи, якщо ми програємо, якщо світ дозволить Україні програти війну з Росією, ми отримаємо концтабори, які вже є, наприклад, в Маріуполі. Не зможе повернутися з полону чоловік Ані і ще тисячі людей, яких Росія, країна-терорист, тримає у заручниках. Не зможуть повернутися додому люди, які вимушені жити за кордоном. Я розумію, що Європі дуже складно через те, що багато українців були вимушені виїхати. Я розумію, що Європа переживає зараз за енергоносії і за те, чи холодно буде взимку. Але ми переживаємо зараз за те, чи залишаться наші діти живими взимку. Тому що я б хотіла назвати страшну цифру зараз, скільки дітей в нас вбито, а ми їх не можемо порахувати. За різними підрахунками, тільки в Маріуполі цивільне населення загибло – це 87 тисяч людей, щонайменше. Скільки серед них дітей? Тому, чи складно українським журналістам? Мабуть, що складно, але українцям зараз, в принципі, нелегко. Але ми не приїхали сюди жалітися. Ми не прийшли просити, хоча ми щодня говоримо про те, що нам потрібно, наприклад, важке озброєння і підтримка і розуміння світу. Ми працюємо. Українські журналісти будуть працювати, скільки це буде потрібно. В нас виникла, знаєте, яка складність? Журналісти-чоловіки пішли на фронт. Тобто багато журналістів мусили відкласти камеру, залишити свої мікрофони і піти зі зброєю, взяти зброю до рук. Це стосується не тільки журналістів. Так зробило дуже багато українських людей, тому що нам, на жаль, не залишили вибору. Ми не хотіли цієї війни. Ми хочемо бути мирною країною, яка просто живе. Я, як журналіст, мрію знімати сюжети про котиків, про те, що в зоопарку панда народилася, наприклад, десь у світі. Але ми знімаємо про фронтових котиків теж. І навіть наших військових ми теж називаємо нашими котиками. Ми розуміємо, що я як журналіст можу працювати тільки тому, що сотні тисяч військових стоять живим щитом між російським агресором, російським окупантом і мною як журналістом, і ще мільйонами людей за нашими спинами. Ми намагаємося, найперше, наше завдання на зйомці – це вижити, друге – це показати світові війну. Це наша маленька робота на місці, і я розумію, що наскільки складно було зібрати велику кількість документального матеріалу, який Женя, наш режисер, помістив у свій фільм. Це вкрай важливі свідчення. Ви знаєте, не всі ці відео підійдуть для суду в Гаазі, але це дуже висока цей фільм дуже висока концентрація війни. Тобто те, що ми переживали понад півроку, 6,5 місяців, Женя спробував показати і показав, я просто ще не бачила, за майже 2 години. Знаєте, я хочу, щоб люди, які будуть дивитися на результати роботи, в тому числі результати роботи і журналістів також, щоб вони побачили, які ми, що ми веселі, що ми сміємось ворогу в обличчя. Це те, що в нас хотіли забрати. Вони хотіли, щоб ми плакали і боялися. Ми сміємося їм в обличчя і боремося за Україну, за кожен метр української землі. Ми будемо боротися за кожного хлопця чи жінку, чи навіть вагітну жінку у полоні Росії. Ми ставимо собі за мету зберегти Україну. Ми розуміємо, що, знаєте, коли я сюди їхала, мені повідомили, що загинув мій друг дитинства. Я хотіла дуже розповісти про нього людям, але ми чекали, поки зможуть забрати його з поля бою, щоб ми могли з ним принаймні попрощатися. В кожному з нас, в кожному українці зараз живе 1000, якщо не більше, документальних історій. Журналісти на війні відрізняються тим, що вони ці історії вміють і намагаються розповідати. Тому все інше стало неважливим. Ми пишемо нову історію України, поки наші захисники, волонтери, медики, вчителі, мільйони людей творять цю нову історію. Наше завдання – залишитися Україною і зробити для цього все. І я дякую кожній небайдужій людині.
And I also want to add something. This movie is dedicated to the journalists. I dedicated this movie, since you started this subject, to the journalists. I was following Marvin Colvin when I was doing Syria story. And since Winter on Fire, since Cries from Syria, I lost a lot of friends who were seeking the truth, to bring the truth from the front lines, to educate the world, to bring the spotlight to the voices that need to be heard. From the beginning of this year, filmmakers, photographers, journalists, our friends, Natasha lost a lot of her friends and people with whom she worked side by side. I lost some of my friends. So for me, it was important to dedicate this movie to everyone who was seeking truth and trying to bring it. And, of course, journalists.
Thank you so much, Evgeny. We had promised a question from the gentleman in blue. I'll ask you to be concise because we are running out of time. Thank you so much.
Buongiorno, sono Paolo Martini dell'agenzia di stampa di N Kronos. Buongiorno. Volevo chiedere al regista, lei che immagine ha dell'Occidente? Secondo lei è cosciente del rischio, del pericolo di cui parlava, del nuovo imperialismo russo?
Natasha.
Ви знаєте, з України дуже складно зрозуміти, наскільки сильно тебе підтримує світ. У квітні, коли вже моє рідне місто Київ було фактично відбите, я потрапила до Литви. Коли я потрапила до Литви, я перші кілька годин не могла перестати плакати, але такими, знаєте, хорошими, вдячними сльозами. Тому що на кожному кроці я бачила український прапор. На кожному кроці я відчувала підтримку. Ця підтримка, ми бачимо кожну людину, мені здається, що ми відчуваємо тепло кожної людини, яка виходить з українським прапором або з вимогою зупинити Росію. Звісно, дуже складно підтримувати війну довго. Я вам скажу, навіть півроку жити у війні – це дуже складно. Ти виснажуєшся. І, звісно, виснажуєшся, коли ти не бачиш цього постійно, коли ти не відчуваєш як загрозу собі. Зараз, на мою скромну думку, Європа не до кінця розуміє загрозу Росії. Це Україна – це тільки шлях до Європи, шлях до окупації інших територій. Це війна, яку потрібно зупинити, звільнивши українські території. Без цього Росія не зупиниться. Це те, що потрібно зробити для безпеки світу. Ми щодня кричимо. Це яскравий приклад – захопити Чорнобильську атомну електростанцію. Це ядерний тероризм. Світ, почуйте нас, це ядерний тероризм. Зараз захоплена Запорізька електростанція. Це загроза всьому світу. Так, першими помруть українці, звісно ж. Але це ми вже переживали вибух. Я сама переселенка з Чорнобильської зони, і я знаю, що це таке. Я чудово розумію, що це те, що зачепить весь світ. Війна в Україні, агресія Росії – це загроза всій планеті. Це загроза існуванню цивілізованого світу. Там вони, російські окупанти, давайте називати їх правильно, роблять те, що цивілізовані люди в 21 сторіччі не мають права робити. Вони не можна гвалтувати дітей, не можна гвалтувати, нікого не можна гвалтувати. Не можна розстрілювати людей просто так. Не можна вбивати людей, бо вони говорять українською мовою. Не можна просто брати і захоплювати території. Зрозумійте, російський президент і російське суспільство разом з ним, вони просто зірвалися. Вони вважають, що можуть робити в цьому світі все, що завгодно. І на прикладі України вони це показують. Ми що захочемо, те і будемо робити з цим світом. Українці готові багато до чого. Ми вже багато чого пережили. Але зараз і за допомогою кіно, і за допомогою всіх можливих способів ми маємо показати світові, що потрібно обов'язково звільнити усіх заручників, яких тримає Росія. Потрібно звільнити обов'язково українські території. Поки Україна не буде звільненою, світ не має морального права жити спокійно. Тому що сьогодні це трапилося з нами, завтра може трапитися з будь-якою країною. Звісно, найбільшу загрозу розуміють Польща, Литва, країни, які вже переживали російську окупацію, які розуміють, що, ну скажіть, чи знаєте ви, де найближче бомбосховище до вашого будинку? Чи знаєте ви, як реагувати на сигнал повітряної тривоги? В Україні про це знає навіть найменша дитина. В нас коти з собаками знають, що треба, починають у ванну бігти. Але ми втомилися боятися. Чи втомилася Європа від України? Можливо, частково. Окремі люди не розуміють, чому вони мають пожертвувати своїм комфортом, аби зберегти життя наших дітей. Але мені здається, що людяність має стояти вище за особисті інтереси. Нам в цій війні українці намагаються зберегти свободу і гідність, а світ має зберегти людяність.
Thank you so much for these very important and urgent words, Natalia. Unfortunately, we ran out of time. Before we wrap the press conference, I would like to remind you that today and tomorrow are two very important days for Ukraine in the festival. Today at 2:15, we have the premiere of Freedom on Fire, followed by, at 5 p.m., the premiere in Orizzonti of Luxembourg. Unfortunately, the producer of this film, Vladimir Yatsenko, is not with us because he's fighting on the southern front of the war. And tomorrow we have the Ukrainian Day here at the festival. Starting from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. at the Hotel Excelsior, in the spaces of the conference space of the Venice Production Bridge, we will host a day of conversations with Ukrainian filmmakers, including Yevgeny. Once again, thank you so much, Natalia, Hannah, and Yevgeny, for being with us and for presenting Freedom on Fire in Venice. Thank you.
Buongiorno, è la conferenza stampa di Saint-Omer. Vi presento subito gli ospiti al tavolo, che sono la direttrice della fotografia Claire Mathon, le produttrici, i produttori Christophe Barral e Toufik Ayadi, la sceneggiatrice Marie Ndiaye, I don't know if that is exactly the right pronunciation, la sceneggiatrice e montatrice Amrita David, le interpreti Guslagi Malanda e Kaye Kagame e la regista Alice Diop. Allora, vorrei cominciare con una domanda proprio per la regista. Vorrei che ci raccontasse il fatto, l'idea o l'intuizione, insomma, il sentimento che ha dato vita a questo film.
Voilà, ah, le retour est très fort. C'est possible de diminuer juste un peu mon retour? Ah, d'accord, ouais. Ah, c'est bien mieux comme ça. Je disais donc que commencer cette conférence en parlant de l'intuition, ça me paraît un mot assez juste parce que pendant longtemps, il a été question que de ça. En fait, le désir de ce film, en tout cas, est parti d'une photographie que j'ai découverte dans le journal Le Monde. Et cette photo était tirée des caméras de surveillance de la guerre du Nord à Paris. C'était une femme noire qui portait un enfant métis dans une poussette, en fait, qui poussait un enfant métis emmitouflé dans une poussette, un enfant de 15 mois. Et en fait, c'était un avis de recherche lancé par les policiers parce qu'ils venaient de retrouver quelques jours avant un bébé qui avait été charrié par les vagues. Et en fait, par le biais d'une enquête, ils étaient remontés à cette femme, à cette photographie issue des caméras de surveillance. Et la première fois que j'ai vu cette photo, j'ai eu une espèce d'étrange intuition. Il y avait quelque chose de très familier dans le visage de cette femme, comme si je reconnaissais quelque chose. Donc je ne peux pas dire que je la connaissais, mais il y avait quelque chose de familier en elle, et j'ai tout de suite su qu'elle était sénégalaise. Et quand, 3 jours après, effectivement, Fabienne Kabou avait été retrouvée et qu'elle a avoué, elle était effectivement sénégalaise. Et là, s'est mis en place une espèce je pourrais dire, d'obsession assez étrange pour cette histoire. En tout cas, il y a quelque chose qui m'a profondément aimantée, que je n'ai pas pu verbaliser pendant très longtemps, et j'avais pas spécialement envie même d'éclaircir en fait les raisons obscures qui me poussaient à être si obsédée par cette femme. Et c'est dans cette intuition que je suis allée assister au procès donc, qui a eu lieu à Saint-Omer, donc, où cette femme a été jugée. Et peut-être que je vais m'arrêter pour traduire, parce que je peux continuer. Je peux... Non, c'est en simultané, c'est une traduction simultanée. Ah, c'est parfait. Donc je peux parler longtemps, je rigole. Non. Donc je suis donc allée assister au procès de Fabienne Kabou, et ça a été très honnêtement une expérience très très sidérante, très très forte. Et j'ai été confrontée à des choses que j'avais absolument pas soupçonnées avant. J'ai été complètement charriée par énormément d'émotions, de sentiments, de mon rapport à ma mère, de mon rapport à mon fils. Enfin, il y a vraiment, j'ai vécu des choses très intimes et très personnelles. Et en fait, l'idée du film, elle a cheminé parce que je me suis aperçue très vite que au procès, la majorité des spectatrices étaient des femmes. Et que donc il y avait beaucoup de journalistes, et toutes les journalistes étaient des femmes. Il y avait donc les avocates, les juges assesseurs, la présidente était une femme. Et je voyais bien, j'observais dans la salle à quel point chacune d'entre elles était charriée par les mêmes émotions. Même si c'est des choses dont on ne parlait pas forcément, mais je voyais bien qu'on était chacune des blocs de solitude comme ça, complètement traversés par un certain nombre de bouleversements intimes. Et quand je suis rentrée, que j'en ai parlé à Amrita, elle avait suivi le procès sans m'en parler, c'est-à-dire que je n'avais même pas dit que j'allais au procès, mais elle avait elle-même suivi le procès comme ça, de façon très assidue. Et au fil de la façon dont on parlait de ce film avec les gens, enfin de ce fait divers, on s'apercevait que tous les gens qu'on connaissait suivaient le procès, parce que c'est une affaire qui a vraiment été extrêmement médiatisée en France, et notamment des femmes, et que chacune d'entre elles parler de cette histoire, mais à l'aune d'une histoire intime et personnelle. Et c'est ça qui m'a convaincue qu'il y avait quelque chose là de profondément universel, et qu'au-delà de la simple violence d'un fait divers sordide, comme il en arrive toujours, ce film en fait était un réceptacle pour convoquer quelque chose de beaucoup plus vaste qui est le rapport à la maternité. Et c'est à partir de là que j'ai été convaincue qu'il y avait une matière à faire un film.
Poi se ci sono delle domande alzate la mano, c'è già una domanda, allora passerei già la parola ai miei colleghi.
Buongiorno, sono Stefania Ulivi del Corriere della Sera. Volevo chiedere com'è nata la collaborazione con Marie, perché venendo appunto dal documentario, conoscendo il lavoro che lei ha fatto in passato, come è stato invece intraprendere questo percorso comune di scambio, di collaborazione con Marie. Anch'io mi scuso che il cognome non lo so pronunciare bene. Grazie.
Livre de Marie que j'ai lu depuis toujours, depuis le premier. Et quand on a commencé à travailler avec Amrita sur cette histoire, on se disait toutes les deux, ah tiens, il y a quelque chose de Marie Ndiaye, enfin c'est une héroïne qui pourrait être une héroïne de Marie Ndiaye. Et donc on a commencé en fait à travailler toutes les deux à partir des minutes du procès, parce que je crois qu'il faut que je dise quand même que la majeure partie des choses qui se passent au procès proviennent des minutes du vrai procès qu'on a presque monté en fait sur le papier avec Amrita, qui est donc ma co-scénariste et aussi la monteuse de tous mes films. Et d'ailleurs, ça a été pour moi assez naturel d'associer Amrita à l'écriture de ce film, dans le sens où la manière dont on collabore ensemble depuis maintenant plus de 15 ans, en fait, est une manière de... On travaille vraiment la dramaturgie. Enfin, moi, mes films sont très écrits aussi au montage, donc il y a vraiment toute une partie de la dramaturgie, de la narration qui provient du travail que j'effectue avec Amrita. Et pour moi, lui proposer, enfin, voilà, de continuer de travailler plus en amont à l'écriture d'un scénario, m'est apparu de façon complètement naturelle. Donc moi, j'ai assisté au premier procès. J'ai pris énormément de notes. Amrita a assisté au procès en appel, parce qu'il y a eu un appel. Et en rassemblant nos notes, qui étaient assez fidèles, en fait, de vraiment des vrais propos prononcés par l'accusé au procès, on a fait une première trame où on a monté quasiment les minutes du procès. Donc on a fait une espèce de trame comme ça, assez lâche. Et très, très vite, en discutant avec les producteurs aussi, on a souhaité associer Marie à ce travail-là, dans le but de réfléchir, mais sans vraiment avoir un espèce de point de vue technique très fort, mais c'était plus une volonté de converser avec toi, en fait, et de nous aider, en fait, à construire, en fait, à tisser un fil narratif à partir de l'univers de tes romans, où justement, je trouve que la question de l'ambiguïté, de l'insondabilité des âmes, enfin, moi, c'est quelque chose que j'aime profondément dans tes livres, et c'est ce que je voulais tenter d'approcher dans mon approche cinématographique. Et voilà, peut-être que je peux te laisser prolonger.
Oui, c'est tout à fait ça, et c'est ce que je crois j'ai compris intuitivement, là aussi, aussitôt quand Amrita et toi êtes venus me demander si je serais intéressée d'entrer dans l'aventure. Et nous nous sommes rencontrés, nous nous sommes, je crois, plu réciproquement, ce qui était indispensable pour envisager de travailler ensemble. Mais au-delà de simplement se plaire, il y a eu très vite une grande familiarité entre nous, comme si on se connaissait depuis un certain temps déjà. Et surtout, j'ai ressenti très vite que la manière, l'émotion et ce que vous avez inspiré l'histoire de cette femme correspondait vraiment aux émotions et à toutes les interrogations que j'avais eues moi-même, sans être allée au procès, mais en ayant suivi avec la grande attention tous les articles de journaux que j'avais pu trouver à l'époque. Et cette histoire m'avait fascinée, comme elle a fasciné beaucoup de gens, mais fascinée aussi d'un point de vue littéraire. Je n'ai pas eu l'idée d'écrire à ce sujet, mais vous êtes arrivé un peu miraculeusement, comme pour rendre concrète une chose que j'avais en moi et que je n'avais pas encore eu l'idée ou osé même exploiter.
Alice parlava di una vera e propria ossessione, no? La scoperta di questa foto e la storia di questa donna che è diventata un'ossessione. Mi piacerebbe chiedere alle due interpreti, alle due protagoniste, come questa ossessione è diventata anche la loro e come hanno lavorato insieme ad Alice per costruire questi personaggi così complessi e ricchi e sfaccettati.
J'ai abordé le rôle de Rama depuis, je crois, la première rencontre que j'ai eue avec Alice il y a quelques années. C'était effectivement aussi quelque chose de la rencontre, du dialogue. Et je me trouve extrêmement émue aujourd'hui, pardonnez-moi. Mais c'est une émotion qui m'accompagne depuis le début de cette collaboration, que ce soit en abordant le rôle de Rama, qui est un rôle qui est beaucoup dans l'écoute, dans l'observation. Et je trouve que ça, c'était une partition aussi extrêmement belle de m'avoir permis d'aller chercher dans la profondeur et dans des endroits qui allaient au-delà de l'idée de jouer, mais de vraiment vivre une expérience humaine, complexe et forte.
C'est bon, vous m'entendez? En fait, vous parlez d'obsession et c'est exactement ça. Moi, c'est devenu mon obsession aussi. Donc je pense que le travail, il est à un endroit où il faut rendre cette obsession, je dirais, tangible, expressive sans trop l'être, et on travaille autour de ça. Et je crois que c'est un travail... parce qu'on dit personnage complexe, mais au fond, le travail consiste à dompter cette complexité. Donc, moi, je pense que Alice pourra dire autre chose certainement, mais le travail consistait à pas trop se laisser déborder par cette affaire qui a été une grande affaire française, et avec tout ce que cette affaire évoque pour chacune d'entre nous à des endroits très différents, je pense, mais à des endroits qui ont trait à l'existence, donc forcément c'est difficile, mais il y a un moment où il faut travailler avec. Et je crois que ce film, que la direction d'acteurs, d'actrices d'Alice a permis complètement de travailler sur cette obsession, sur cette complexité et à la rendre sensible. Donc, d'une certaine manière, un peu opaque, un peu intelligible, un peu tangible, un peu tout ça à la fois.
Ad Alice vorrei fare una domanda sulla messa in scena. Se l'idea di mettere in scena proprio un processo, ascoltando appunto l'imputata, fosse una struttura che, come dire, era chiara sin dall'inizio, e tra l'altro è una struttura narrativa che sottolinea l'importanza della parola. Questo è un film di parole e mi piacerebbe sapere anche come ha lavorato proprio sulla parola, sul linguaggio. E poi vorrei chiedere qualcosa anche alla direttrice della fotografia e alla montatrice, ma successivamente.
Vous sollicitiez donc le concours de Amrita et de Claire dans dans la manière dont c'est formulé le travail de mise en scène, c'est qu'en fait, moi, j'avais pas du tout d'a priori sur la mise en scène. Moi, tous les films sont des films de recherche, mes films documentaires, j'ai pas d'a priori sur ce que la forme va... sur la direction va prendre la forme. C'est quelque chose qui se recherche, mais de façon constante. Ça a été le fruit d'un long travail à l'écriture avec Amrita et Marie. Et d'une certaine manière, on était complètement possédés, obsédés toutes les trois, par la puissance de la parole. Et parce que l'écoute de la parole de Laurence, de ce que nous avait procuré l'écoute du vrai procès. Et je savais qu'il fallait que j'invente une mise en scène qui permettrait d'écouter, d'accueillir en fait l'intensité de cette parole documentaire donc, et de créer un cadre qui puisse intensifier la nécessité de regarder et d'écouter cette femme. Parce que pour moi, la question de la justice, elle était aussi dans le fait d'offrir cette femme à l'intensité d'un regard et d'une écoute pour dépasser en fait la simple, encore une fois, violence de son acte. J'avais besoin qu'elle soit écoutée et entendue. Et donc en cheminant et à l'écriture et ensuite avec Claire qui est arrivée assez tôt aussi dans le processus de discussion. En tout cas, je crois que la mise en scène, elle tient beaucoup à toutes les discussions qu'on a eues, mais même 2 ans avant le film. Et en fait, on a cheminé ensemble vers quelque part la nécessité, non pas la nécessité, mais l'évidence de cette fixité, l'évidence de la longueur de ces plans pour accueillir, pour donner en fait à entendre et à voir toute la complexité de cette histoire. Et il y avait aussi pour moi une grande fierté de filmer et de mettre en scène l'histoire de 2 femmes noires si complexes et si rarement vues. Et j'avais aussi envie d'une mise en scène qui puisse accueillir cette presque nouveauté, parce que c'est quelque chose que honnêtement j'ai très peu vu au cinéma, des femmes noires filmées de cette manière-là, qu'on prend autant le temps d'écouter dans toute leur ambiguïté, dans toute leur nuance, dans toute la complexité qui échappe à toutes les projections qu'on peut avoir, qui échappe à tous les attendus. Et c'est quelque chose pour moi d'à la fois très théorique et très politique, mais il fallait que la mise en scène prenne en charge ça. Et en fait, c'est ce qu'on a trouvé dans ce cadre-là. Et je vais passer le flambeau à Claire Maton, la DOP du film, qui pourra prolonger et pourra dire ce qu'elle en pense.
J'attendais une question. Mais je peux, si, effectivement, je peux rebondir sur ce travail de recherche, ce travail au long cours sur... oui, effectivement, j'ai été tôt impliquée, imbriguée dans la recherche, dans le travail avant tout de mise en scène, et donc de cadre, et donc de rythme, et donc de distance pour ce film qui est un film de portrait, qui est un film de visage, qui est un film... voilà, mais je pense qu'on a beaucoup cherché, et c'est un mot qui revient, et c'est vrai que ça a été un des mots aussi importants pour moi dans le travail, c'était que ça reste sensible, vraiment, que ce soit un vrai regard, et donc qui impliquait le nôtre, le mien, et que c'est une vraie, c'est un vrai travail sur comment regarder, comment on la regarde, comment on les regarde. Et ça, effectivement, c'est beaucoup de recherche, c'est vrai, beaucoup de discussions.
Pardon. J'ai l'impression aussi que la fixité, elle offre aussi un espace aux spectateurs. C'est un film qui, j'espère, est très généreux avec le spectateur et en tout cas lui offre la possibilité d'osciller, de naviguer dans ses propres sentiments. Il n'y a pas une vérité sur Laurence, et en tout cas moi j'avais pas envie, ni dans l'écriture, ni dans le montage, ni dans le tournage, de plaquer un discours sur cette femme. J'avais envie d'offrir l'espace à d'autres que moi et aux spectateurs de traverser en fait toutes les émotions qui nous traversent et qui nous agissent quand on écoute Laurence Colli. Et je crois que l'évidence de cette fixité, de la longueur de ces plans, permet ça, à mon avis. Permet aux gens de bousculer leur certitude, de passer d'une chose à l'autre, de tantôt être dans l'empathie avec Laurence, tantôt la trouver complètement froide, distance, menteuse, manipulatrice et que sais-je. Et c'est un film qui accueille tout ça. Il n'y a pas une vérité et chacun des spectateurs trouve en lui-même la propre vérité en fonction de qui il est, en fonction de ce qu'il traverse, en fonction de ce qu'il agit lui-même. Et ça, c'est vraiment des questions de mise en scène qui permettent ça.
Moi, je reprendrai le mot quelque part recherche, en fait. Je pense que c'était ça le processus, que ce soit pendant l'écriture, effectivement, avec Marie. On a beaucoup travaillé sur, comme disait Alice, la parole et comment la donner à entendre déjà à l'écrit. Et ensuite, lors du montage, on a cherché à faire de ces deux personnages, une qui écoute, une qui parle, comment faire pour que on puisse aussi complètement être dans la parole de l'une, mais ressentir ce que l'autre ressent. Et parce que le personnage de Rama est relativement silencieux. Et ça, c'était un des axes de recherche qu'on a poursuivi. Sinon, voilà, je ne sais pas quoi dire d'autre. C'est bien comme ça. Ouais, merci.
Ai produttori vorrei chiedere che cosa è stata per loro invece questa storia. È chiaro che insomma, nella regista e le attrici, la direttrice della fotografia, la montatrice, questa storia ha rappresentato tutto quello che ci hanno raccontato finora. Che cosa è stata, qual è stato invece l'impatto di questa storia per i produttori e perché appunto sono saliti a bordo, diciamo, di questa avventura e hanno reso questa storia anche loro?
En fait, je pense que cette histoire, c'est déjà la suite de l'accompagnement d'une réalisatrice, parce qu'on avait commencé à travailler avec Alice Diop sur un moyen métrage qu'elle avait fait il y a quelques années auparavant, qu'on était en train de finir d'exploiter. Et on a accompagné Alice au téléphone au début pendant qu'elle assistait au procès de Fabienne Cabou, et où on a senti que, en fait, Alice, elle est partie au procès sans se dire forcément qu'il y avait un film, mais on a senti naître dans les discussions qu'on avait avec elle qu'il y avait un film qui se proposait. Et après, ben voilà, c'est la suite de cet accompagnement. Et puis, un procès, ça charge forcément, ça amène forcément une dramaturgie qui c'est le projet. Donc après, c'était travailler avec Alice sur l'histoire qu'on allait raconter et qui serait l'histoire de Laurence Colli et puis de Fabienne Cabou.
Je peux rajouter. Aussi, Alice, c'est quelqu'un qu'on... C'est des accompagnements. Nous, en tant que producteurs, on aime accompagner et surtout découvrir, rencontrer des gens qui aiment le cinéma. Et on est souvent à leur écoute. Et il y a cette histoire qui est forte, cette histoire de femme aussi, qui est très forte, qui nous parlait aussi au fur et à mesure qu'on en discutait avec Alice. Il y a toujours aussi on a toujours on ressent beaucoup de choses quand on fait des films comme celui-là, comme Saint-Omer. On a l'impression aussi que beaucoup de gens peuvent se sentir un peu le hors-champ, si je puis dire. Et c'est des sentiments qui nous parlent aussi et qui nous poussent à accompagner au maximum des réalisatrices comme Alice Diop, des équipes comme elle a choisi. Et nous, voilà, on est là pour accompagner, essayer de faire découvrir au maximum de gens qu'il y a des gens très forts, très puissants, très brillants et qui peuvent raconter des très belles histoires, des histoires très fortes. Et c'est ça qui nous anime et qui nous donne notre énergie et qui font qu'on peut franchir des barrières grâce à ça.
C'è una domanda ancora lì?
Scusate, ne faccio un'altra, ma si è capito che il film mi ha colpito molto. E volevo chiedere se l'idea di inserire le immagini dalla Medea di Pasolini siano state subito una scelta, come l'avete condivisa, se ovviamente è il riferimento culturale di tutti noi, insomma, una madre che compie il gesto più estremo, ecco. Però se Medea, che è chiaramente il riferimento, l'idea di mettere proprio anche i frammenti del film è stata una scelta che è arrivata come, quando, Alice, non so se anche altri vogliono rispondere, grazie.
C'est assez étrange quand j'ai assisté au procès de la véritable accusée. Quand elle a raconté, en fait, je crois que c'était en milieu de procès, quand elle a raconté les faits tels qu'ils s'étaient produits, c'est-à-dire quand elle a vraiment abordé dans les menus détails l'acte qui l'a conduit à tuer son enfant. Donc c'était d'ailleurs un récit très durassien, d'ailleurs, très littéraire. Et je crois que c'est ce qui nous permettait, nous, dans la salle, de pouvoir l'entendre et pouvoir l'écouter. Et je me suis même demandé si elle n'avait pas un moment fictionnalisé, tellement il y avait une dimension romanesque et littéraire dans la façon qu'elle a eue de raconter la manière dont elle a nourri son enfant, la manière dont elle est sortie, la manière dont la lune guidait ses pas, la façon dont elle a bercé l'enfant avant de la dépouser comme ça, presque très doucement sur l'eau, alors que la marée montait. Il y avait quelque chose de complètement abstrait, de presque lyrique, en fait, j'ose dire le mot, alors que je n'atténue pas du tout la violence de l'acte. Hein. Mais je me suis rendu compte qu'il y avait quelque chose de fascinant, c'est-à-dire que je pouvais entendre cette histoire parce elle l'avait mise en récit elle-même, la véritable accusée. Mais il y a encore une fois, il y a quelque chose qui me semblait familier dans cette manière de raconter. J'avais l'impression d'avoir déjà entendu cette histoire quelque part. Et en rentrant, j'ai regardé le film de Pasolini, et là, j'ai été totalement stupéfaite. Et je me suis demandé si elle n'avait pas plagié volontairement ce passage du film. Peut-être que c'est vrai, peut-être que c'est pas vrai, mais en tout cas, c'est ce que je me suis formulé, et c'est avec ça que j'ai travaillé, en tout cas, la mise en scène, et ça m'a paru hyper essentiel de faire dialoguer à la fois la manière dont cette accusée raconte cet acte fou, la façon dont elle le raconte de manière à le faire entendre quelque chose d'autre que la violence de l'acte, et la manière dont ça réagit avec cette Médée de Pasolini. C'est comme si c'était à la fois une manière de raccrocher cette histoire très concrète, très contemporaine à quelque chose de beaucoup plus grand, de beaucoup plus mythologique, de beaucoup plus presque intemporel. C'est une histoire antique, en fait. C'est une histoire immémorielle. Et la référence à Médée, au-delà du fait que Pasolini est un des cinéastes qui, moi, m'apporte le plus dans mon cinéma, en tout cas m'apporte beaucoup. Ça me semblait assez naturel de convoquer cette dédicace dans le film.
Vi ricordo che il film uscirà nelle sale italiane con Minerva Pictures in autunno e novembre, in contemporanea con la Francia. Vi ringrazio, dobbiamo fermarci qui. Molte grazie a tutti, grazie. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, merci.
Buongiorno, benvenuti alla conferenza stampa del nostro film fuori concorso Dreaming Wild. Prima di cominciare vi presento gli ospiti al tavolo a partire da in fondo a destra. L'attore Jack Dylan Grazer, Zoe Deschanel, Casey Affleck, il regista del film Bill Poholt, coprotagonista Walton Goggins, Noah Jupe, and Bo Bridges.
What are these things for?
Well, if they speak in Italian, you can wear them and there will be a simultaneous translation. And I have a question. I'm going to start with Bill. Bill, you're very selective about what you direct. I believe this comes from a New York Times article that you read in 2012. Can you speak to what made you want to make this movie?
Well, part of it was meeting people. I mean, originally it was brought to us by Jim Burke, who's a producer, and he's also a good friend. Brought the project to me, and actually I didn't really like it because it sounded a little bit too much like Searching for Sugar Man, like that story. I said no, but then I listened to the music and read the article, and I was obviously captivated by the music. But really it was about meeting the family, going to Spokane and really meeting Donnie and the whole group, and just enchanted by them, I guess, to see what kind of people they were. And it's like you never meet these kind of people in the movie, so I wanted to kind of take that on and really make that part of the movie. So.
There's a question here.
Congratulations. What a beautiful, beautiful movie. It's Stephen Schaefer here from Boston Herald. Bill, for you, this is a sort of, we go in thinking it's a comeback story, but it's certainly an unusual one, an unexpected one. And for Casey, what was it like playing Donnie Emerson when Donnie Emerson is standing around and you can meet him and we see him at the end of the movie? It seems like it must be a pretty unique challenge.
Steve, I've seen you more than I've seen Donnie Emerson, I think. It was harder than you might imagine to get a hold of Donnie and have him around. He didn't want to be, thank you. He didn't want to be on set too much, which was maybe a courtesy to us because it might have been awkward, as you point out. But also, I think he had mixed feelings about the whole thing, as one might. But before we started shooting, Bill had suggested going up there to meet him and spend some time with him, which is the right thing to do. And my girlfriend and I went up there and stayed with his family and for a little bit, and that was definitely informed the way that I thought about him and portrayed him. So they were generous with their time, but they were also, Donnie said, "It's okay. Whatever you end up doing will be okay with me." Yeah.
I wonder if the rest of the cast can also speak with about the relationship with the family in terms of preparing for the roles.
With the actual people?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Don Emerson has become a good buddy of mine since we did the movie, and I find him just really inspiring. I mean, he's 91 years old. He still drives his big timber trucks up into the woods, which I did with him on several occasions. Don had to teach me how to drive all the big trucks and stuff. One of my funniest moments was I had a couple words to say as I jumped into the truck, and it has like 18 shifts on it, this big thing, and so I got in there. I said my little bit, and then I'm supposed to drive off, and instead I turned the truck off.
which Don Sr. really enjoyed, of course, enjoyed that. But they're a great family. We spent a lot of time. I didn't see a lot of Donnie because he was living in Nashville. He came up for a couple of visits. But Joe and Selena, Don's wife, we talk often now on the phone with each other. And every time before I get off the phone with them, Selena sings me a song, which is kind of cool.
Noah?
Yeah, I mean, I met Donnie less than Casey did, but the times that I did share with him were pretty, like, special, magical, like, just emotional. He's a very, like, passionate guy, and, yeah, he was very respectful to us, you know, giving us time and space to interpret the character in our own way, but always there if we needed to ask questions and stuff, and yeah, I got on very well with him, and especially his kids, Avea and Chance. I ended up hanging out with them. Like, they showed me around Spokane and stuff, which was cool.
But how was for you and Jack imagining them as they were young? It's a difficult one.
Yeah, no, I know. I think what really connected us was through, like, the music, because the first week that me and Jack met, we literally had a theater rented out for us to just practice and rehearse together. And it built our relationship as friends, but also, like, connected us through our characters through the music, because we were actually working on the music and doing something creative. And yeah, I think we formed, like, a really close bond, which very much helped the like, story and the characters, I think. Yeah.
Jack, you wanna?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the whole story had so much heart to it, and I wanted to bring so much.
Click the button.
Oh, sorry. Hello, everybody. Good to meet you. Piacere. Yeah, I don't know. We bonded pretty fast, and I think we're both very obsessed actors, I think. Like, we wanted to do the research. I felt forced to be deferential and listen to the album every day, and I was really excited to meet Joe. I had, like, one or two encounters with Joe, and he taught me how to drive a tractor for a second. He got kind of impatient, and it felt very paternal and really cool, and, like, I don't know, there was so much humanity in this story.
He's like a super surreptitious guy.
Yeah, definitely. But overall, I mean, we bonded pretty fast. It was like, and now we're glue. Now we're stuck to each other, and we love each other. And the music, yeah, very good point. The music is definitely something that was like a really great bonding agent for both of us. Similar to glue.
I was just going to say the farm itself, I think, was a real character in the piece. I haven't seen the movie yet, but it feels like it must have been. To be in there and on the farm, the buildings that were there during their whole adventure together as a family, the recording studio that Don Sr. built for the guys, for his sons, is still there, right in the woods. Just amazing. And you can see the distance when the old guy talks about hearing his son play music down, you can actually see those buildings. That was a major part of it for me.
Was it filmed entirely on the farm, or?
Yeah, sorry, we should have mentioned the bigger deal, made a bigger deal of that. It's all shot, all the exteriors are in, sorry? All those, the exteriors are the farm itself. And some of the interiors. Some of the interiors. Joe's rehearsal space, that's all Joe's real space. So. Mm-hmm.
Hi, I have a question for Casey. Welcome back to Venice. You've had quite a history here. Last time you were here alone and Joaquin was playing hide and seek, so it must be nice to be surrounded by friends.
Yeah, a little support. It's great. Other people to answer the questions is nice. Yeah.
But also, yes, you were here with Andrew Dominic, of course, who's got a film tomorrow. You're going to catch up with him while you're here. And what have these, having your premieres in Venice, meant to you?
I've seen Blonde, and it's incredible. I'm not going to get to see it here because I have to go home. Yeah, there's really, it's one of my favorite place for sure to come to. It's just because all festivals have their own character in some way, and the personality of Venice is, it's like so elegant, it's so prestigious, it's also, they love cinema, the whole history of cinema here, but it's very quiet and respectful and cool, and it's not too chaotic. I love coming here. Yes, I have. He's a very good friend of mine, and I've seen a couple versions of Blonde, and it's taken him a long time to, you know, get it out into the world. But that's just how he is. He's so slow with it, and it's an amazing, beautiful movie. I'm sure some of you may have seen it already, but it's great. Like this movie, and so it's, but yes, it's always incredibly an honor to be here in any capacity. They've never asked me to be on the jury. I'm not sure why, but yeah, thanks, Shigeja, yeah. But yeah, I love being here. It's the best.
I think there's a question there.
Buongiorno, Sabrina Colangeli, Taxi Drivers. Innanzitutto grazie per questo film. In una scena finale il personaggio di Donnie dice a Joe, riferendosi alla canzone, tu sei la sua magia. Qual è per voi la magia di questo progetto? Grazie.
Walton Goggins. I'm just kidding. Joke. That was a bad joke. I don't know. You know, that's wow. What is?
Just for the record, you are the magic of this movie.
That was a joke. You know, I don't know. What was the magic of this movie?
You are.
I mean, Bill's been working on it for years and years, and it's definitely, he was the person who had a vision for it and knew what he wanted to make and spent so much time on it, and you know, directors work in so many different ways and actors have their ways, and it's never exactly the same combination. And Bill had his way, and it was, you know, watching the whole thing take shape was really figuring out what Bill wanted. So I would say that he was the magic. Yeah, but we looked the best.
But I think you were also like the magic in this movie is like the magic in this story, and I think, I don't know, for me, you know, this story I loved it from the first time that I read it, and Bill and I started talking about like a year before it took place. And, you know, it's a biopic about, you know, artists that most people have never heard of. You know, this isn't the Rolling Stones, right? It's Donnie and Joe Emerson. And I think what Bill captured in his script, and the thing that was so visceral to me from the first time that I read it is, you know, what is fame, you know, and how do we measure fame, and what, you know, what is the shame that one carries if they don't reach a certain pinnacle or a mountaintop, and what does that really mean? And the ending of this story for me is going back to, and what you did, what you wrote is what these brothers had, and that's going back to just the love of making music, and that's what it should always be about, you know. If you're playing an instrument, or if you're saying a line, or if you're directing a scene, whether people see it or they don't see it, there's value there, you know, and I think it's about reclaiming that for oneself, and that's what I think what you did in this movie, mate, and you know what you wrote, and certainly what I felt with Joe, you know, and spending that time with him, and the catharsis of finding that, you know, over this time, and I think this movie is, and I'll just say this, and then I'll be quiet, but I think there's a certain amount of relief, or what's the word I'm looking for, when you, that they knew that something was, they were proven right after all of this time, the movie was released. But that wasn't the end of the story. You know, there was still so much pain after this album was released. And I think that that's going to change, you know, with this story, and them watching it and seeing their lives in this way. And I think that's the one thing that we're all very proud of, you know, up here, is participating in the evolution of their story as a family. Okay.
Anyone else about what's magic about this project? That was the question. Anyone else about what's magic about this film? What's the magic in this film? That was the question.
Again, it was the family for me. It really was the magic of those very simple people, very authentic, nothing kind of false about them. When we did the movie there, and they weren't like all over us. They Joe was super welcoming and helping us out everywhere he could, but not like trying to be part of the scene or something like that. They just let it happen, and they're no different than they are before the movie. So I think
when I saw it for the selection, I was also thinking about this film coming out in the context of contemporary, America. It seems to defy so many of the cliches, like, distant places, have no interest in the art, It's just a very, as Mr. Bridges said before, it's a very inspiring thing that way, because it defies the stereotypes of what America is thought of today.
There you go. A person that was very important to me in my life as a mentor was my basketball coach at UCLA, where I played, John Wooden. He won 10 straight national championships, which is probably not going to ever be, no one's ever going to do that again. And he created this thing called the Pyramid of Success, and I think this movie has a lot to do with what is success. And to Coach, success had nothing to do with winning. It had to do with finding peace of mind. And he said the way you find peace of mind is to leave the task knowing that you've done your very best. And the pyramid is all these blocks that you need to find success. And the two cornerstones of the pyramid are industriousness, which is hard work, and the other, and enthusiasm, joy. Because Coach said anybody can bring hard work to the table, but when you bring it in combination with joy, that's when exciting things happen. And then when you get to the top of the pyramid, when it's game time or making a movie time, he divides it in half, the pinnacle, faith and patience. Because Coach said that you need faith in whatever spiritual feelings you have in a God or whatever you want to call it, but you also have to have faith in yourself, and you have to be patient because it never works out the way you think it's going to work out. It's always something different. And making this movie was that, because we all knew that we had a great responsibility to tell this family story. And we all come, like Casey was saying, from different places, how we prepare, how we work. So it required a lot of collaboration and us all having faith in each other and ultimately doing the best we could do. And then we walk away, and we can't lose, because you can't lose if you do your best.
Amen. Amen. Oh.
There's a question there.
Hello, I'm Claudio Gargano for Nocturno. I think this is a movie about how we face our weakness, our limits, and it moved a lot of things inside of me. I want to ask to Casey Affleck, how did you relate to this character, and if even in your soul has moved something you have to face in your life?
Oh boy. I mean, I guess the part of the movie that you're talking about is, failure and trying again and second chances and stuff like that. I have experienced my share so far of failure and dashed hopes and collapsed dreams and things like that. These aren't the worst of them, but I've also been in a lot of movies that I thought would be great and they didn't turn out to be great. When we brought Jesse James here, it was had a nice, warm, polite reception, but the rest of the world thought that it was a total disaster and a failure of an expensive movie. And for a while, I thought to myself, my greatest accomplishment is being in the Brad Pitt movie with the lowest box office. So there's other more personal failures and things in my life that I guess I, brought to bear in the performance of Donnie, and thinking about how hard it must have been for him to put everything that he had into this, to sort of put himself and his family's earnings on on the line and to lose it all and to be willing to carry on playing music in some teeny tiny way in his studio in Spokane and trying to accept that the world was never going to hear his music, but he was going to keep playing it anyway. And I think that's really admirable, but it was sort of unsung in his life until now. And so in some ways, I think what Walt was saying is that the film is itself a kind of redemption for Donnie and for his family too, who had faith in him. And that, you know, gave me and maybe gives other people hope in the things that they're trying to do that they haven't been able to do or that they've tried to do and they felt like a total failure. I've had a lot of ups and downs in my own life, and so it was nice to be able to like bring all your own stuff to work, as it always is as an actor. A lot of people don't have that. They have to go to work and no one cares about their feelings. As an actor, you get to come to work and talk about, you know, when your mom wasn't that nice to you. And it's quite cathartic and it helps you grow every day. So that's one of the best parts for me of being an actor. And so I try to bring whatever I can from my own life to every job if it's applicable.
This one here. Scusi, se vuole restituire il microfono.
Thank you very much for your movie. Watching the movie, I could not help it, but think that Donnie, played by Casey Affleck, reminds me so much about Paul McCartney. And actually, when at the end of the movie, Donnie was talking to Joe. It was very funny that he was mentioning Ringo Starr. So my question is, when you were talking, if you had a chance to talk to real Donnie and Joe, so by whom they were inspired as a musician? Do you know that?
Well, yeah, well, I can answer, but also Bill had wrote into the script. I don't know if it made it into the movie, but they talk quite a bit about all of the musical inspirations.
Yeah, they didn't have much, as we mentioned in the movie, they didn't have a lot of input. Like they didn't have a record player. They listened to Lawrence Welk, they said, occasionally, and things like that. So when he eventually, kind of most of initial stuff was kind of pure, almost pure music, whatever he was hearing in his head. And then eventually they had this radio, and so he picked up like Marvin Gaye and various other influences. It was all over this small Spokane radio station that just played every genre because they didn't have any other radio station, so they would play everything. And that's what influenced him. It was just a pure mix of diverse elements. So that's, I think, for him.
You know, the thing that I'm so curious of, because Donnie, I never went to Donnie's house, and I didn't meet him until after we were already filming. And Casey had obviously spent all of this time and has been with this project for a very long time. And I had never met Joe until I got there. And as soon as I kind of went out on my own and, you know, walked right in, he offered me a Guinness. And the rest was, let's just get right into it, man. Let's get into the pain. Let's get into all of it. Because he's a very complicated guy. And the thing that I found most interesting was, I think, well, first and foremost, he says, you know, and he said it multiple times, like, Donnie is the one. Like, he's the one with the gift. And for Joe, it was just to be close to him and a way to continue that relationship. But I do think, and the thing that was so surprising to me is Joe doesn't listen to music, like, at all. There's this one, and I forget his name, but there's this one guitarist that he really likes, but there was no sound in his house. It was very austere, but, you know, filled with love, but very austere. He lives alone. And I watched him play. And I'm not a player. I didn't know how to play drums before this started. But I watched him play, and for him, it was almost like a religious experience. It was like it was in his body, and he was getting something from it. And he would sweat. And it was like this tribal, like a celebration, almost like a daily Mardi Gras, like in his body, you know, like it was amazing to kind of watch. And then he would stop and he'd say, okay, let's go to chapel. All right, cool, let's do that.
I mean, Zoe's a musician, and has been, I think, probably understood better what their influences were.
I don't like. I didn't talk to them like specifically about their musical influences. I know that there's like a huge amount of talent like in that family. I mean, Nancy, who I played, who married into the family, incredibly talented musician herself. And I think that was just something we all, you know, as a group wanted to honor, was just their fantastic musicianship. And that was a really fun, like, little magical thing that we all kind of got to participate in addition to, you know, telling the story. So that was great.
Hello, Tom from Luxembourg. I was wondering, taking independently the record itself, Dreamin' Wild, out of all contexts, so no screenplay, not the article, not the story, did the record itself, independently of everything, nourished the characters you played? And since we have one half of she and him, and we have one fabulous baker boy on the stage, what effect did the record have on you when you listened to it for the very first time? Thank you.
Actually, oh, sorry. You want to go? You go.
No, please.
I just, so that record's, I mean, it's such a beautiful record, and it has, it's funny because I think there's something about it. What's really special about it is the way that Donnie's talent, you know, and Joe too, but like I think Donnie was kind of the producer, you know, really of that record. And his talent mixed with kind of not knowing exactly how to use all the recording equipment he had. At the time, he was a teenager, and it has this really warm sound. Like the microphone is kind of blown out, and it's not the way we're used to hearing music recorded now. And that's why it catches your ear. I mean, because it's beautiful. The song is beautiful. You know, I mean, the songs are beautiful, and the melodies are catchy, and they are good musicians. But it's this other factor where it's like someone figuring out their voice as a songwriter, as a musician, and as actually an engineer at the same time. For me, I thought that was what was really exciting and interesting about it. Go ahead, Noah. Or Bob.
When I first heard it, it was like a oh, thanks. When I first heard it was like a meditation. You know, it's kind of repetitive and relaxing, and music is such an important part of what we do. But also in our story, it's revealed that when you're trying to make a living as a creative person, you better know something about marketing and how to get it across and get people to listen to you. And these guys, they were all about creating the music, but the marketing aspect of things came, 30 or 40 years later, whatever it was, and you know, and then here it comes. That was kind of interesting to me.
If I could say one thing, I think I've been dying to express this at least some way. It's probably one of my favorite albums of all time, just let alone. I'd like to compare it sometimes when I talk about it. I don't know if you're familiar with an artist named Daniel Johnston, but he's a weirdo, but he was so passionate, and his music doesn't sound, it's not palatable. But there's so much heart, and in this album, it's just full of sincerity and so much thought, and that's, I think, what makes it so earnest and genuine and full of heart and love and humanity is that these are just two kids just like jamming in their little music room, making great sounds and having fun and laughing, and you can feel that in the music, and that they don't want to end a song. It's like you can feel that they're just having the best time of their life, and that shines through so much. And when playing, I know with me and Noah, with playing this character, like that came so naturally too, because we became symbiotes with our character, And I don't know. I just wanted to express that because that it's like so impactful to me, and I think Noah's heart as well.
Yeah, I mean, completely. The album for me was like, I must have listened to it. I think I got, like, you know, on the Spotify listeners thing, I got the top 0.0001% of like listeners to Donnie and Joe Emerson that year. And I fucking loved their album, and I know every song by heart, and it just means, the funniest thing about it was when I was reading the script for the first time, when I got sent it, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna put on the album. I hadn't heard of these guys before, and I put on the album, and turns out I actually knew a few of their songs, and it was so emotional for me because I grew up with these songs, or I'd heard them before somewhere, so it was some sort of familiarity. Yeah, so basically it just really connected with it, and as Jack said very well, you know, it's really a beautiful album, really special. Yeah.
I am very sorry, but this is all we have time for. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for letting us show the film.
It was a pleasure.
Buongiorno, benvenuti alla conferenza stampa del nostro film in concorso The Sun. Prima di cominciare vi presento gli ospiti al tavolo a partire dalla destra in fondo. La produttrice Jo Laurie, il coprotagonista del film Zan McGrath, Laura Dern, il regista del film Florian Zeller, Hugh Jackman, and Vanessa Kirby. There's a question there.
Hello, everybody. Congratulations. This is Stephen Schaefer for the Boston Herald. For Florian, you've made such a successful transition from the stage to directing, as well as adapting your plays. Does this mean you're going to give up the theater for the movies? And for Hugh, was it difficult to pull yourself away from the Music Man and let those people wait for Harold Hill for several days?
So I start. Thank you for your
Push your button.
Okay, it works. Thank you for your question. Yes, it's true. I come from theater, and I have spent the last years really on stage, and this is something I like and I love profoundly. It doesn't mean that I'm going to quit theater, but my dreams and my the world that I want to explore is really cinematic now, I think.
We have, for those who don't know, I'm doing a musical right now on Broadway. We've been doing it for 8 months. We have 4 months to go. I'm enjoying having a week off being in Venice. Very, very happy. And I'll look forward to going back in a week. So, yeah, but thanks.
There's a question here.
Hi, Massimo Mazzetto. I have a question for Hugh Jackman. I've read in an article that you, after seeing the show in the theater, you talked to the director to have the role of Peter.
Mm-hmm.
What moves you to want this role so warm?
It's true. Thank you for your question. It's partly true. I have not seen The Sun in the theatre, but I had read the play, and I had seen The Father, and I almost did one of Florian's plays a number of years back, but it didn't work out, so I was a huge fan of his. But when I read The Sun, it was a feeling like a fire in my gut. It was a compulsion. It's a scary feeling to have. It's a beautiful feeling. You rarely get it as an actor, where you feel that the part is right for you at this point in your life and you just must play it. The scary part is you may not get the part. And I will admit, I emailed Florian. I said, I don't know if you're dancing with anybody else, but if I'm not the type of person to cut in on a dance, but if you're not, I would love to play the part and I'd love to speak to you. And he emailed me back and we spoke very soon after. So yeah, I did chase it, and I'm so relieved he said yes.
It is true that I received that email, and I was very surprised and touched by his humility and his honesty, and I really felt that it was something special in his approach. And so we met on Zoom because it was like 2 years ago, and so it was the only way to connect. And it was just a first meeting. I was not planning to make any decision, and after 8 minutes, I offered him the part because I felt something very strong about the reason why he was connected to that story, and I had the feeling that he has the availability to do what I wanted to do so much and to explore these very emotional territories in a very honest and humble way. And it was the better decision, the best decision ever, because from that moment on it was like such a joyful, truthful and intense journey that we have shared.
There's a question here.
Germany. I have a question for Mr. Zeller. I understand that the play originally was in France, set in France. How was it for you to transpose it to an American setting and to the New York scenery? Because it looks as if it was always meant to be in New York.
Thank you for your comment. It's true that the play takes place. So the film is the adaptation of a play that I wrote a few years ago, and it took place in France in the first place. You're right. And when I started to dream about making that adaptation, because everything starts with a dream, the first image that came to me was New York, because to me, at least, this is the crossroad of our world. You know, you can meet people from everywhere in that city, and what was so important to me, it was not to tell a French story or a British story or an American story, but to tell a story that could happen to anyone. And to me, at least, New York was a way to tell that story. But it's true that the work was about trying to be as close as possible to the American reality, especially when it comes to the psychiatric world. So we did some research, and we worked together with Joe Laurie, the producer, to be as close as possible to that American reality. But because it was more about, you know, universal feelings, emotions, fears, you know, it could happen anywhere.
Ellen?
Hello, Helen Barlow from the Australian newspaper. Hi, Hugh. I love to see you dance in the film. Did that come with Hugh, or was that originally in the screenplay, Florian? And did you get to devise your own dance? I mean, but it was a great moment of getting together and showing the alienation. And also, could you talk about your scene with Anthony Hopkins? Did it make you shake in your boots, or?
Want to start?
The dancing was already in the...
Yes.
Yeah.
The dancing...
It was in the play too, was it?
It was in the play, differently, but it was in the script. But we made it together with Vanessa, with Hugh. We chose the song together to find something as alive as possible. And it was a joyful moment in the middle of this journey. And I remember that it was a special moment.
It was a great... Yeah, go.
It's a great feat of acting to make Hugh Jackman look like a bad dancer.
I don't know, because I have a 17-year-old daughter, and I told her about the scene. And I said, you know, it's just sort of a dad doing dad dancing, you know, kind of nerdy. And I wanted to let me run by a couple of things. I'm thinking, she said to me, she goes, Dad, you don't need to rehearse it. You're good. Just turn up, just roll the cameras, you're good to go. But I did. Yeah.
I think it's not true. You have to be a very good dancer to pretend not to be a good dancer.
There was another question there. Oh, how could I forget that question? I remember Florian calling me to say that Sir Anthony Hopkins was going to be playing my father. The scene is so beautiful and so pivotal, I think, in the movie, because for so much of the movie, for my character, Peter, he's focusing on his role as a father, and as an audience, I think it reminds us all that we're all sons and we're all daughters, no matter how old we are, and we're informed by our past as much by the present. And so that scene was so beautifully written, and I was mainly excited, incredibly excited. Of course, a little nervous. I mean, he's a titan for me. He's one of those actors I've looked up to for many, many, many years, and to be on set with him is so inspiring because he has the curiosity and the work ethic of someone who's straight out of drama school. I mean, Florian told me that he was emailing him almost every day with questions. He said, I got almost as many emails for this as you did on The Father, you know, where he's in every scene. So it was a great joy. He's full of life and childlike and a beautiful man.
I would say the same thing about Hugh to work with.
You didn't even hear it.
Oh, didn't hear it. Oh, I'd say the same thing about you, Hugh, to work with.
We had a question here.
Thank you. Congratulations on the movie. It is very distressing and alarming, but on the other hand, amazing. I have a question for Mr. Jackman and also Ms. Dern and Ms. Kirby. It is one question. Throughout the movie, we see as an audience a particular scenes with gazes, with looks, and there are close-ups, and we see the main actors look at the camera. It reminded me of the Kubrick gaze, and I wanted to ask about that. Do you see any parallels, and how did you manage to do that? What was the idea of those gazes? It's like, for example, in the beginning, there is a look in the character of Hugh Jackman and Laura Dern, and the character of Mr. McGrath, and it's like they're communicating with each other without being in the same room and without knowing it. Thank you.
Do you want to go? You go, Laura.
You go.
No. Oh, you go, Vanessa. Do you want to say? I've talked too much. You guys talk. Go.
So the question was about the interaction when we're not speaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when sometimes you're not even in the same space, but you feel like there is a communication.
Yeah. I mean, I think what Florian's a master of is communicating things, the unsaid things and the unconscious and the repressed things. And I think that's what was most challenging about the group and the dynamic is I think part of the difficulty or the distortion is that they're unable to speak to each other about what's really happening inside of themselves, and sometimes they don't even know. And so you see them processing it in real time. So I actually found that some of the most painful stuff to do is that there may be an experience that's happening inside the character or the person or the psyche that is unable to be communicated. And I think the movie is so beautiful at capturing the repressed. And I think watching Hugh and Zen and Laura work was so masterful for me because what they were doing was because it was all in the unspoken. It's so little, it's so rare. It's like Chekhov, what Florian writes, is because it's so rare to have it not in the words, but in the thoughts and the feelings. And it was a challenge, but really exciting to do. But these guys did the most tremendous job, so I'm going to let you talk now.
But it's true that there is a specific moment in the film where, in a way, the family is reunited without being in the same room. And it was a way for me to tell by catching the eyes directly from the actors through the camera to capture that connection, this invisible connection. Because it's a lot about, you know, the trilogy, the trinity of the mother, the son and the father. And the son is mentioning a lot the divorce as something to blame for his own pain. It's not what I was planning to tell personally. I mean, I don't feel that the divorce is an issue here. But when you are suffering from mental health issue, because this is what it is about, you always look for someone to blame. And for that character, Nicholas, this is the divorce. And because the father feels guilty, because the mother feels guilty as well, they share this intuition. But my intuition is that, you know, the mental health issues are much more difficult to explain. There is like a biological part, a psychological part, and my intention was to try not to explain where it comes from. We all know people that have everything in their life to be happy and are struggling with pain, and so it's something that is impossible to explain completely. There is a mystery, and I was really, I mean, it was important for me to capture that mystery, that we cannot understand exactly where it comes from, and there is a frustration that comes with it, not to be able to, when you want so much to help someone, to understand exactly where it comes from.
I think, oh, sorry. No, go ahead, Laura, go ahead.
I just wanted to add how privileged I felt being guided by Florian's wisdom about the love within a parent, that in that moment, as Zen so beautifully expresses his anxiety in this classroom, that Florian knew how to guide both Hugh and I. And in the moment we were in the office, he said to me, but this is a mother's love. It's not just in the loving, it's in the breath, it's in the cells, this generational understanding, trauma, pain, and that as he was in this anxiety, I would be living it too, without even knowing, and then obviously directed Hugh in the same way. It speaks to the language that he gives us, not only in the brilliant writing, but in his direction, that it just continues with every frame. Very, very lucky.
I think Zen should follow up on what Florian was talking about, because not giving a reason, like a tangible cause for his pain, must make it harder for you to capture this character. If you have a cause and effect, and I think part of the beauty of the film is really that it's an existential malaise. It's not, it's something profound and it's difficult to tap. And so as an actor, especially such a young actor, how did you find that pain and the ability to translate it for us?
Well, I feel like a lot of it was out of frustration of him not knowing what to do about it and him just sort of suffering in it. I think Florian helped me a lot and guided me through that. And the confusion and isolation that Nicholas feels, I think it was enough for me to find his pain. And try to express that, especially in the scene where I'm looking through the lens and sensing Laura and Hugh when he's on the train. I think Florian helped guide me through that, which was awesome.
Okay, I think the mic is here.
Federico. This is Federico. A question for Vanessa Kirby. What made you comfortable to play this role? Very simple question.
I guess I'm most inspired by cinema that asks questions of us and as people and selves that sit in the cinema in a dark room that we don't often ask ourselves. And Florian's work did that for me in The Father, and I read the script and I knew it was asking a question about what would I do, what would we do in a situation that's so complex and nuanced and conflicting, and with each individual character has their own set of internal turmoil and inability to express how they felt. And I always look for the movies that ask difficult things. And I know Florian asks those things and wants to lean into the corners that are painful. And I think when you do that in cinema, for me, I'm most inspired by movies that ask those questions, so that when I ask them in myself, I feel slightly less alone because I know someone else is asking those. So that's what made me really excited to be a part of this and to watch these guys work and see the pain on screen that even though it's not my life or necessarily what I identify with, it makes me feel less by myself and more as part of the human race. As grand as that sounds, I think that's what cinema, the best cinema does.
C'è una domanda qua in prima fila.
Good morning, I'm Alessandria Sage from the Italian newspaper Leggo. My question is to Mr. Jackman. I would like to ask you, as a father yourself, how can you relate with the idea that we see in the movie, that no matter how hard you try, sometimes you cannot simply save someone you love, and out of love you try to protect, and sometimes it's not enough, and out of guilty, when you are a father, it's very relatable. I was wondering.
Alessandra, is it? Thank you. It's a really great question. There's a line in the script, love is not enough. It's not always enough. Everyone in this movie loves so much, but feels a powerlessness at some point. Because the truth is, to raise a child, or for all of us, we need a village. We need more than just a mother and father. We need that. We need friends. We need support. We need community. We need teachers. There's so many people that influence us, that guide us along the way. It is so painful. And going back to your early question too, the movie really does see how isolated, particularly around mental health issues, people get. There is a shame, there is a guilt, there is an intense desire to fix things, and that it's somehow my job as a father or as a mother or as a friend is my job to fix it. But realizing our powerlessness, and I can relate to this as a parent, admitting and leading with that vulnerability, it leads to the possibility of really actually being able to understand and empathize with those people around you, to walk in their shoes and to have real honesty. I think for many, many years as a parent, the job was to appear strong and dependable and never worried, and I don't want to burden my children, but I've certainly, since this movie, I've changed my approach. I share my vulnerabilities more with my 17 and 22-year-old, and I see their relief when I do. So hopefully the movie does start conversations. Hopefully the movie reminds us to never worry alone, that we're all in the same boat, that this mental health issues is a crisis everywhere in the world. No one is immune to it. Everybody knows somebody, if they're not dealing with it themselves or with people close to them. This is something that we need to talk about, we need to understand, and we need to come together on.
I think there's one here.
Fiorelli from TV Sorrisi e Canzoni. There is I don't want to give spoilers, but there is an excruciating moment when the parents and the father, more than other, have to decide if asking the son saying, "Don't abandon me once more," and or listening to someone expert saying to do something else. So it is excruciating. I'd like to know, how did you prepare that scene? And if you ever felt like that, a dilemma like that in your real life, to all the cast. Thank you.
I think the dilemma, we all share it, you know, because it is about to try to make the right decision. And it's so difficult as a parent to make the right decisions. And it's fine, the fact that it's not easy. It's part of the journey of being a parent, I would say, not to know anymore what to do in some certain situations. And it's true that in this situation, they make the wrong decision thinking that they can fix it by themselves. And there is a moment where maybe it's meaningful also to accept being powerless and important, and to understand that it's fine.
Up there.
Scusa?
Okay, yeah, you wanted the cast to respond to, yeah.
Yeah, every parent can relate to being terrified of what the hell to do, almost on a daily basis, even like what sandwich to put in the lunch. You know, there's so many options. I think I wish, I mean, my kids are 17 and 22. I wish that someone had told me that you're going to make as many mistakes as you're going to make right decisions, and that's part of it, and it's okay. I think it all feels so terrifying at times, and beautiful, and worrying. It's the most humbling role I've ever played, that's for sure, as a parent. So I cannot personally relate exactly to this story, but in some ways we can all relate to these decisions, even if they're not quite as dramatic as this.
I would just add how grateful I am to the timing of things, that as Florian has had this story in his bones, that as we've walked through the pandemic and all been reading, this is the greatest crisis that has come through this time, is the epidemic of mental health, particularly in adolescents and young adults right now throughout the world. The numbers are so shocking. And I think for me, perhaps one of the most painful parts of the journey of that specific moment is the discovery that even when you feel powerless, even when you feel alone in your shame, guilt, blame, lack of answers, you can turn to so many who may have been there before, and they may advise you in your desperation, and they may have made choices that were right for their child or uncle or father or friend that don't apply to this amazing being. And so you want to feel the collective community, and you are so alone in the experience of what this person needs in this moment. And no matter how right you try to get it, it can ultimately be devastating. And so we all long to feel community in this larger conversation we must be having about mental health, and still we will always feel alone in those moments. And that's this duality of living and growing as people. So I again, am so blessed to have been put into this dynamic to look at it and learn from it. And with amazing Zen, who was so incredible and raw and in the agony that spoke to the whole scene, and we just lived with that.
Well, and I feel as well with the scene we're talking about where I say, don't abandon me, it links right back to my sort of childhood, and you see it a lot, linked back to young Nicholas with the family. He, I think, envisages what he wants, and I think it comes back to that instinct of wanting to be with your family and your mother and your father in a sense of security. And Laura and Hugh really made it sort of easy for me to do that by being so kind and welcoming.
Florian, I think the father had some autobiographical related to origins, related to your, to your family, or some inspiration. Was there? Why did you want to focus on mental health on display, and particularly on young people?
So the play, I wrote it 5 years ago, and it was the most important story that I had to tell, I think. Probably because somehow it comes from a personal place, not in terms of characters or situations, but I would say maybe in terms of emotions. This is emotions I'm familiar with, I would say. And but I was not planning to make a film just to tell my own story or to share my own emotions. It's not enough to tell about myself. What happened is that when we did the play on stage, I was really impressed to see the response of the audience, that people were waiting for us after every performance, not to say congratulations, but really to share their own story, to tell their own story. It was a way to say, I know what you're talking about. And this is when I really realized that there was, as you said, so many people that are dealing with this kind of issue. So that's when it started to become like necessary for me to make that film. It was a way to open a conversation, because I think it is important to feel comfortable about talking about it. Because as Hugh said, there is so much ignorance, so much shame, guilt about that topic. And to make a film about it was a way to open that conversation.
I think we have time for one, and it's been waiting forever, yeah.
Hello everyone, thank you. Congratulations for the performance, but my question is actually for Zeller, and I'm going to do it in Italian, so if you could please wear your headphones.
Sure.
For Zeller, the question. Okay. Quindi, allora, in The Father l'appartamento ricopriva un ruolo fondamentale all'interno del film. E durante la visione appunto di The Sun ho avuto come la sensazione che gli appartamenti anche fossero come filtrati dalla visione di Nicholas. Ad esempio quello di Peter mi è sempre sembrato abbastanza freddo e scarno, e quindi mi chiedevo anche, provenendo da una pièce teatrale, come si gestisse la scenografia, poi riportandola appunto all'interno della pellicola.
Thank you. I think I understood the question.
I can repeat it if you want.
It's true that in The Father, I used the set to tell the story because it was part of what I wanted to do. It was a way to, in a way, to put the audience in a specific position, as if it was a way for them to experience what it could mean to lose your bearings. You know, as if they were in the brain, in the main character's brain. In The Sun, my desire was to tell the story completely differently, and that's why it's so straightforward and linear. It was a way to reflect what I was trying to achieve, which is not to shy away from this topic, and also to tell the story from the outside, you know, from the father's perspective, from the mother's perspective, from Beth's perspective, from the people that are surrounding these young adolescents in pain, without being able to understand, trying to get into the brain without being able to do it, you know, with all the frustration that comes with it, because it was about people that don't have the keys to help that person. And so it's not about exactly the set you were mentioning, but the set was used in The Father for that strategy because it was like a subjective experience. Here, I wanted to do it like a more objective storytelling and a more linear. And the set, of course, was, for that reason, realistic.
I am sorry, but we have to finish this. We have no more time. Thank you. Thank you for
very
being
much.
here. Thank you for the film.
Allora, buon pomeriggio e grazie di essere qui. Siamo alla conferenza stampa degli ultimi giorni dell'umanità. Vi presento gli ospiti al tavolo, che sono Enrico Bufalini, direttore cinema e documentaristica Luce Cinecittà, Gabriele Genuino, produttore per Rai Cinema, Armando Andria e Gabriele Monaco, produttori per Matango. Abbiamo l'attrice, la protagonista, non attrice, la protagonista Aura Ghezzi. Il coregista Alessandro Gagliardo. E qui in prima fila Enrico Ghezzi. Allora, vorrei cominciare con una domanda per Alessandro, ma in realtà rivolta anche agli altri partecipanti alla conferenza stampa. Chi ha voglia di rispondere, di aggiungere qualcosa. Vorrei cominciare proprio dall'archivio. Il film, la struttura, l'ossatura del film è proprio lo straordinario archivio di Enrico, e quindi al quale sono stati aggiunti materiali provenienti da altri archivi, ne parliamo. Ecco, quindi vorrei capire intanto quando è nata questa idea e come avete lavorato su questo sterminato archivio, credo molto molto vasto. Alessandro, cominci tu.
L'idea è molto antica, non si può dire, comunque viene da lontano. Mi ricordo che la prima volta che mi era sembrato di intravedere qualcosa era una notte di fuori orario in cui c'era Enrico che entrava a casa di Umberto Eco, che poi gli faceva i tarocchi. Una delle poche immagini non siamo mai riusciti a ritrovare, e l'indomani mattina scrissi ad Enrico, era il 2009 credo, dicendo: esimio signor Ghezzi, vabbè, non sono stato così formale, però sarebbe bello poter dare un'occhiata a queste riprese. Poi 10 anni dopo si è creata la condizione e devo dire che poter lavorare con quelle immagini è stato l'esito di un atto di grandissima fiducia e di, come dire, anche di consegna di responsabilità e di generosità da parte di Nella Buonaiuto, che al primo incontro che abbiamo fatto si presentò. Eravamo a casa di Enrico con una busta piena di cassette che erano la storia della loro famiglia. Gesti così importanti e basati su una qualità delle relazioni che travalica un po' la società alla quale siamo abituati, ti consegnano una responsabilità e ti danno anche un grande interesse di fare bene le cose. E quando abbiamo iniziato ad acquisire queste cassette, l'abilità straordinaria di Enrico è sempre stata quella di spostare oltre il dato, oltre ciò che avevamo, per cui l'archivio è stato un punto di partenza e poi abbiamo continuato a sconfinare e così si sono aggiunti altri archivi. È stato molto interessante perché noi avevamo avuto diversi approcci nel tempo sulla questione archivi. Abbiamo sempre pensato che le immagini degli archivi che riguardano le storie di diverse persone abbiano bisogno in primo luogo di non essere piegate ad uno scopo, ad un uso, semmai di essere liberate. Un'amica che si chiama Alessandria Sage parla degli sguardi amorosi di cui gli archivi hanno bisogno, e stamattina ora lo raccontava anche in un'altra intervista. Quindi abbiamo proceduto così, con l'occasione molto intensa e fortunata di avere una relazione con tutte le persone che dentro quell'archivio ci sono, ed è stato quello il punto che ha sviluppato quello che oggi noi riusciamo a vedere. La capacità che un archivio fosse anche la mappa di una serie di relazioni con le quali avere a che fare, scoprire e mantenere sempre una qualità della relazione che fosse all'altezza del dono che era arrivato e che poi è stato consegnato.
E con gli altri archivi come ha funzionato? Chi vuole rispondere? Con gli altri archivi, come avete armonizzato gli archivi di Enrico con gli altri archivi?
Beh, in realtà un po' questa possibilità di lavorare, l'idea di lavorare con altri archivi era un po' nelle cose, no? Nel senso che in parte viene anche dal lavoro che Enrico ha sempre sempre fatto, che è un lavoro appunto sempre, come dire, di ibridazione costante, insomma, e mai di omologazione, diciamo, no, delle immagini, quindi già era in sé, diciamo, questa possibilità. In più, diciamo, anche Alessandro Gagliardo, insomma, che ha sempre lavorato anche lui in realtà in questa direzione, cioè come lui accennava prima, una direzione di apertura e di come dire, non catalogativa, diciamo, del lavoro d'archivio, ma proprio all'opposto, diciamo. Quindi era subito, insomma, c'è subito stato molto presente e chiaro che era bello, necessario, interessante, proficuo, diciamo, andare oltre. E quindi abbiamo una prima, insomma, ovviamente vasta fonte è stata, come dire, diciamo, la cinefilia, l'amore, anzi direi forse cinematografico, che ci ha guidato, insomma, di Enrico verso appunto per tutti i suoi appunto innamoramenti, no? Insomma, di 100 e più 120 anni di cinema, e in questo, diciamo, abbiamo, come dire, molto avuto la possibilità di attingere a una rete di appunto relazioni, come accennava anche Alessandro, importante, di autori, registi, amici, fratelli, insomma compagni, diciamo, di avventura di Enrico, inizialmente, che poi sono diventati anche nostri in qualche modo. Cito Belatar, cito Abel Ferrara, cito José Valdelomar, insomma mi fermo, ma dovrei continuare, diciamo, però è lunga, che ci hanno dato la possibilità, ci hanno aperto, insomma, le loro appunto loro archivi, i loro lavori, insomma, con la possibilità pressoché illimitata, diciamo, di attingere e di rimettere in gioco quelle immagini con altre immagini. E poi c'è la parte, insomma, l'archivio di Enrico l'abbiamo detto, c'è una parte di archivio della cronaca, di archivio, insomma, contemporaneo, e anche questo, diciamo, sta nelle cose, no? C'è l'idea di comunque far confliggere, insomma, l'archivio, lo sguardo, insomma, di una persona che appunto era Enrico in questo caso, che ha filmato per tanti anni, con invece, come dire, l'opposto, no? Cioè lo sguardo in qualche modo un po' più standardizzato, diciamo, insomma, lo specchio, no? In questo senso, che è, diciamo così, un po' lo sguardo della cronaca. E poi ancora abbiamo avuto la collaborazione di Centro Santa Cristina, che è un po', diciamo, l'archivio Luca Ronconi, con Roberta Carlotto, che insomma è stata molto al nostro fianco. E appunto magari questo poi lo possiamo sviluppare dopo in un altro tipo di intervento, però insomma, è bello sottolineare che questo film si è nutrito ed è stato reso possibile davvero grazie all'incontro di una serie di persone, una serie di realtà che si sono messe in gioco, diciamo, in una forma non necessariamente, diciamo, ferma, solo produttiva e solo mercantile, uso questa parola, ma è una forma amorosa, diciamo, per realizzare questo lavoro. Questo è importante.
E di questa forma amorosa, cioè a questa forma amorosa hanno preso parte naturalmente anche i produttori, Luce Cinecittà. Ecco, che sentimento avete? Prima dicevamo che è molto difficile parlare di questo film e soprattutto immaginare delle domande, perché sono talmente tante le suggestioni che poi danno origine a discorsi. Ecco, con che sentimento vi siete avvicinati a questo lavoro?
Allora, Luce Cinecittà, che come dice dal nome incarna un po' le due anime. Io sono tra l'altro anche il direttore dell'archivio storico dell'Istituto Luce, quindi per noi è stata proprio molto naturale entrare in questo progetto, perché intanto con Enrico curiosamente condividiamo un fatto, e cioè che entrambi abbiamo cominciato a lavorare, lui alla RAI, io a Luce, all'Istituto Luce, con la stessa persona, che era Angelo Guglielmi, che così come aveva, diciamo, intuito, intravisto tutte le possibili strade per migliorare la televisione moderna, perché era un linguaggio nuovo per la televisione, anche quando è arrivato a Luce ha visto subito la potenzialità dell'archivio storico e quindi ne ha curato, ne ha velocizzato sia la catalogazione che la digitalizzazione per dare quello che oggi è un archivio molto ricco, molto facilmente utilizzabile. E oggi noi abbiamo visto in questo film proprio la capacità di anarchizzare gli archivi, cioè anche noi siamo oggi nella seconda fase, dopo aver archivato, dopo aver curato molto invece l'archiviazione, siamo nella fase, così un po' come anche in questo film, di utilizzare contenuti dell'archivio, anche non rivenienti dall'archivio storico, anche rivenienti dal cosiddetto fan footage, in maniera creativa. Il lavoro di Enrico lo dimostra, diciamo, pienamente. C'è un riutilizzo anche in maniera creativa degli archivi, ci sono gli archivi, i film che sono inseriti, le sequenze di film, e per noi era un naturale proseguimento di quella che era un'attività che si era fermata negli anni 70 con la grande produzione cinegiornalistica e poi proseguita invece in questa grande produzione documentaria che ci vede anche oggi noi coinvolti in uno stile di racconto che è proprio quello oggi della documentaristica, delle nuove produzioni dell'Istituto Luce, quindi una fortissima coincidenza di obiettivi e di interessi su questo prodotto.
Gabriele, vuoi aggiungere qualcosa tu?
Buongiorno, certamente sì, insomma il nostro approccio è stato, quando abbiamo avuto la possibilità di essere, diciamo, compartecipi di questa avventura, perché è stata letteralmente un'avventura umana, artistica e cinematografica, quindi non potevamo non esserci, dovevamo esserci, ed è stato straordinario esserci, anche per corrispondere, insomma, e compartecipare, come diceva Armando, a questa comunità che si è stretta intorno ad Enrico e al suo lavoro. Dal nostro punto di vista era un po' corrispondere a quella gratitudine che in questi giorni si sente proprio vibrare nelle persone. Enrico ha accompagnato tanti di noi, me per primo, giovani appassionati di cinema, in esplorazioni, in mondi, in visioni notturne, e questo si sente, risuona, riverbera e ritorna qui anche in questa occasione, anche questo film, quindi assolutamente ne siamo grati di aver potuto partecipare a questo percorso. Grazie.
Abbiamo ancora l'altro Gabriele.
Sì, abbiamo iniziato a lavorare al progetto ormai 4 anni fa ed è stata una forma molto anomala, non si è mai codificata in nessuna struttura. Abbiamo abbracciato fin da subito una delle grandi metafore del film, penso che è quella del naufragio, nel senso procedere naufragando, attivamente naufragando. Abbiamo deciso di non porre limiti a quello che potesse accadere sia nell'accogliere archivi, contributi, sia nel tentare strade che ci hanno detto in tutti i modi erano impossibili. Abbiamo sinceramente sempre rilanciato, e in questo sono assolutamente maestri Enrico ed Alessandro, azzardare ben oltre le umane possibilità. Questa è stata una delle cose più entusiasmanti di tutto il percorso, perché sostanzialmente non ci ha mai posto il limite, non c'è mai stato un campo di gioco determinato, produttivo, come diceva anche Armando, sostanzialmente vincolato alla materialità. L'adesione è stata totale, è stato un vivere costante in questi 4 anni in prossimità con la famiglia, con Enrico, con tutto quello che è stato il materiale, molto 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 vicino. E questo è stato ovviamente il più grande riconoscimento, il fatto di avere avuto la cura e la sensibilità ed esserne stati travolti dalla cura e la sensibilità di quello che è il lavoro che vedremo oggi assieme.
Sì, noi abbiamo visto. Vabbè.
È scappata di mano sta copia.
Ora, tu hai lavorato su un archivio, ma anche sulle tue memorie, diciamo, di prima mano, autentiche. Come è stato conciliare, come le tue memorie personali hanno dialogato con questi materiali d'archivio? Che cosa è stato per te questo viaggio?
Allora, diciamo che il lavoro... cioè le mie memorie effettivamente non c'erano di molti di quei momenti, appunto è stato un film che per me ha voluto dire anche una ricerca dentro l'archivio. La prima cosa che abbiamo fatto con Alessandro e il babbo è stato rivedere tutto il materiale che c'era su di me, perché appunto Alessandro aveva notato che c'ero dal giorno in cui ero nata praticamente, e quindi per me è stata una scoperta, perché quel materiale non l'avevo mai visto. E poi invece abbiamo fatto un lavoro di altro tipo, perché il lavoro invece su Kafka è appunto un materiale che è venuto fuori dopo, perché per il babbo era, diciamo, uno dei punti imprescindibili che ci fossero questi testi di Kafka, e quindi insomma Alessandro ha avuto, diciamo, ha voluto chiedere a me di fare questa cosa perché appunto io a un certo punto sparivo da questo archivio e poi lui mi ha conosciuto, diciamo, dal vivo, e facevo l'attrice, quindi voleva che io partecipassi a questo film anche in un'altra forma,
certo,
diciamo, non solo come appunto persona che sta nell'archivio, cioè come tutti, insomma, ma anche attivamente in un altro modo.
Ci sono delle domande? Una domanda lì.
Grazie. Buongiorno. Allora, il film ovviamente è fluviale, giustamente, ma c'è una parte che mi ha molto colpito e fatto molto riflettere, quella in cui assistiamo a una lezione di Jean-Marie Straub all'università, e si parla specificamente del fatto che crediamo di leggere un libro, crediamo di vedere un film, ma in realtà non resta niente, e quindi solo ripetendo la visione, cioè trasformando la visione in una sorta di contemplazione, arriva veramente il film dentro lo spettatore, dentro il fruitore. Allora mi sembra che questo racchiuda in parte la filosofia di questo lavoro, e vi volevo chiedere un commento su questo aspetto.
Beh, una delle prime suggestioni, uno dei primi razzi di lancio che Enrico condivise era «On ne saurait pas penser à rien», anzi il pa non c'è, «On ne saurait penser à rien», scusate il mio francese, non sapevo pensarne nulla, era la prima indicazione sulla quale avevamo iniziato a lavorare nel 2019. In quel pezzo è chiaro che vengono posti degli accenti sul fatto della contemplazione, ma anche sul senso mistico e anche sul senso politico, e anche sulla capacità di avere pazienza, anche sulla capacità di non trasmettere le proprie visioni psicologiche sullo schermo, ma di vedere la materialità del film. Chiaramente quello è un brano enorme, bellissimo, che è a sentinella del film per tutto quanto il suo continuare a scorrere, ci dà delle indicazioni di lettura e ci fa vedere anche una maniera che è sempre stata combattiva da parte loro di affrontare anche momenti come quelli con il pubblico, o in generale dei momenti che riguardassero la proiezione di un film, il fatto di fare un film. Quindi sì, la contemplazione sarebbe un bellissimo modo per approcciarsi a questa forma.
E, collegandomi appunto alla precedente domanda, due cose, due parole guardando il film mi sono venute in mente, cioè guardando queste immagini e inserendomi in questo flusso, mi è venuto in mente scoperta e libertà, cioè è una continua scoperta, lo è stato anche lo sguardo, anche quello che abbiamo scoperto del cinema grazie allo sguardo di Enrico, e questa grande libertà di associazione, ecco, confesso che non riesco neanche correttamente a formulare una domanda precisa, però volevo sapere se appunto il senso di scoperta e di libertà è una cosa che ha mosso voi quando avete lavorato su queste immagini.
Devo dirti che sono molto contento del fatto che utilizzi questi due termini, scoperta e libertà, perché un po' credo che sia stata la tensione mai dichiarata sulla quale abbiamo lavorato. Nel senso, il lavoro che abbiamo fatto con Enrico è stato di scoperta quotidiana, cioè non c'è stata mai una concettualizzazione, una teorizzazione che portava alla costruzione o alla ricerca del materiale in una determinata maniera. Un giorno a Napoli nel 2019 qualcuno ci fece una domanda e disse: ma qual è il fil rouge? Quale sarà il fil rouge di questo lavoro? E io scrissi La scoperta, poi dissi Harry può essere la scoperta, e siamo rimasti lì. Ma scoprire che cosa significa, la grande opportunità che abbiamo avuto rispetto alla possibilità di non avere dei limiti preimposti da questo punto di vista. Scoprire significa avere la possibilità di approcciarsi alle cose con curiosità. E quello che nel fondo, diciamo, di me stesso mi ha sempre tenuto sveglio, particolarmente sveglio, è stato quello che sarebbe stato bellissimo se la scoperta che noi stavamo facendo costantemente nella costruzione potesse essere esattamente lo stesso atto che stavamo offrendo, e che quindi nel nostro scoprire e comporre, se vuoi liberamente, si riuscisse a come dire, consegnare la scoperta anche a chi guarda. Come processo dinamico che è capace di appunto sorprenderti e quindi attivarti, eccetera, eccetera. Però la scoperta e la libertà sono sicuramente due delle cose più fortunate che mi sembra di aver vissuto in questo periodo.
E un'altra cosa che mi colpiva sempre di quello che diceva Straub in questa intervista è che quando dice che non si può davvero comprendere un film se non ci si spoglia di se stessi in qualche modo, no? Se non si dimentica se stessi. E allora mi chiedo quanto è difficile per noi, anche soprattutto oggi, dimenticarci di noi stessi e come dire, consegnarsi all'immagine di un film completamente con uno sguardo puro, insomma, non condizionati da preconcetti, ecco.
Non so che grado di purezza possa avere uno sguardo, però penso che la migliore maniera di approcciarsi a questo lavoro è una disponibilità, che non ha una richiesta specifica da nessuna parte. Penso che abbiamo cercato di evitare, perché non ci apparteneva, perché non è mai stato uno dei punti, di dare delle indicazioni né di metodo, né di teoria, né di nessun altro tipo. Quindi se c'è una disponibilità e se c'è una curiosità, sicuramente si può determinare un incontro, e il film credo che si presti ad incontrare altre persone, altri sguardi. Non so se ti ho risposto, però.
Sì. Sì. Parliamo un attimo del titolo, un po' del titolo. Perché questo titolo e che cosa evocava in voi? Che cosa ne è dell'umanità? Sta per finire? Quali sono gli ultimi giorni? Perché sono gli ultimi giorni?
Questi sono degli interrogativi che ci siamo fatti noi stessi e che abbiamo riportato. Sono già avvenuti, li stiamo vivendo o arriveranno. Penso che l'umanità in un certo senso si è sempre raffrontata con un senso di catastrofe, probabilmente la straordinaria occasione della propria finitudine che lo porta sempre ad un'idea di tragedia in un certo senso. Però l'aneddoto che mi è da raccontare rispetto a questo punto è che un giorno eravamo a casa di Enrico, in uno di quei momenti straordinari in cui abbiamo vissuto anche una qualità del silenzio e dell'ascolto, se si vuole, straordinaria. Un giorno mi disse Enrico, gli ultimi giorni dell'umanità, e io mi presi i miei 40 minuti per pensare, dissi, Enrico, il titolo? Sì, ok, e quello è diventato il titolo all'istante. Ora, questo lo racconto perché è un bell'aneddoto, perché il risultato, quello che oggi vediamo, è esattamente il risultato di un tipo di lavoro di questo tipo. Non c'è stata la necessità di discutere le ragioni o di immaginarsi una contestualizzazione diversa da quello che era esattamente l'intuizione che in quel momento aveva avuto Enrico, che in altri momenti portava qualcun altro, la possibilità di trasformare immediatamente, trovandosi in un contesto di fiducia dove ognuno sapeva che si stava assumendo le responsabilità, come gesto creativo, trasformare immediatamente un'indicazione o un'intuizione in un fatto, ha per esempio dato il titolo a questo film. Poi è evidente che gli ultimi giorni dell'umanità sono diventati un'indicazione molto ampia, perché andando avanti nell'archivio c'è per esempio una meravigliosa presenza di Luca Ronconi, che Enrico andava spesso a seguire durante le prove o durante gli spettacoli. Non so se c'è Roberta Carlotto, però a quel punto abbiamo chiesto a Roberta Carlotto, ma sarebbe possibile vedere degli altri materiali filmati di Ronconi? Roberta fu gentilissima, ci ha aiutato lungo tutto quanto il percorso, e dopo 1 anno e mezzo di lavoro, in cui già il titolo era stato, come dire, stabilito e tenuto sempre in forze, dopo tutto, arrivò un bellissimo 2 ore incredibili degli ultimi giorni dell'umanità, la regia che fece Ronconi su quest'opera. E solo a quel punto gli ultimi giorni dell'umanità hanno iniziato ad entrare dentro il nostro film. Quindi se vuoi è come l'inseguimento di un'intuizione non predeterminata. E ci siamo relazionati con un'opera straordinaria. Io, se ti devo dire la verità, evidentemente ho cercato di capire, diciamo così, con tutte le difficoltà che un tema così vasto può suscitare, di che umanità stavamo parlando. E una volta ho detto di Guerri, ma io mi sono attestato su questa cosa qua, è possibile che c'è ancora umanità fino a quando si è capaci di esprimere una libera volontà e di provare dei sentimenti? E su quello mi sono fermato e ho cercato di continuare a esprimere libere volontà e provare sentimenti. Era la mia piccola maniera per trovare la determinazione lungo il percorso.
E sulla base di quale limite o di quale linea guida avete poi scelto certi materiali? Immagino che insomma non sia stato facile scartarne degli altri. Con quale criterio avete scelto quello che poi abbiamo visto? Non so chi vuole rispondere.
Se volete io taccio.
No, forse...
Sei sicuro? Ma sarebbe bello sentirvi su come avete percepito. Penso che l'elemento selettivo non è mai stato una delle dinamiche che ci hanno permesso di arrivare a questo film. Per farti un esempio, una volta, quando abbiamo finito di acquisire le prime 700 ore di archivio dell'archivio di Enrico, non abbiamo detto iniziamo a scegliere. Abbiamo detto iniziamo a creare eccedenze, abbiamo creato altre 300 ore di archivio, quindi non è proprio esattamente un lavoro di selezione, ma è stato proprio un lavoro che tendeva ad eccedere da tutti quanti i lati. All'interno di questo eccedere naturalmente si sono depositate, so che è difficile come dire, riceverle in questa maniera, ma si sono depositate delle cose, quelle che si sono depositate hanno iniziato a lottare spesso con delle altre, alcune sono rimaste, altre no. Ma non c'è stato un criterio selettivo, c'è stato un cercare. E quello che parte di quello che abbiamo trovato è là. E poi si è creato una costellazione di cose trovate e sganciate, che chissà che quando rientreranno in orbita.
C'è una domanda lì, prego.
Giusto una curiosità riguardo al titolo. Per caso vi siete confrontati con l'opera teatrale o prima o successivamente di Karl Kraus, Gli ultimi giorni dell'umanità, in cui con centinaia di personaggi in campo descriveva tutta la prima guerra mondiale, quello che sarebbe successo dopo, e praticamente era uno sguardo teatrale epocale di un'epoca al tramonto e di un futuro amaro, insomma. Grazie.
Sì, come diceva Alessandro, il lavoro di Ronconi è esattamente su l'opera di Karl Kraus, quindi abbiamo girato nella nostra produzione nomade in vari angoli d'Italia, sempre con il libro di Kraus, che ci ha affascinato sotto molti punti di vista, l'idea che sia un'opera del teatro di Marte, sia un'opera di impossibile, questo ritorna anche nel nostro slancio. Sicuramente Kraus è stato un interessante e straordinario faro da questo punto di vista, sì, ovviamente.
C'è ancora una domanda, sì, un'altra domanda lì.
Dunque, ad Aura e Alessandro e anche a Andrea, io sono rimasto strabiliato e incantato dal fatto che ogni immagine di questo film nasce nel momento in cui tu la vedi, al presente, non senti l'archivio, è tutto è come se fosse tutto al presente, lo stato rinascente, l'epifania delle immagini sono strepitose, strabilianti, e in questo sono epifaniche, cioè sono delle epifanie, ogni volta delle epifanie, quindi delle rivelazioni che hanno aura, per l'appunto. E trovo che aura e certi momenti della presenza di aura nel film sono commoventi, non so come altro dire. E questo non era più che una domanda, era una dichiarazione di entusiasmo.
Incassiamo, Bruno, grazie.
Va bene, allora se non ci sono altre domande chiudiamo qui. Grazie davvero, grazie del film e della vostra presenza qui a Venezia. Grazie mille, grazie.